Hello there. Oh, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to anybody and whatever time you're watching this. Welcome to my channel. My name is Josh. We do politics, news, current events, and react to random stuff, whatever's kind of on my mind. Yeah. How's everyone doing? It is currently October 25th, 2022. Yeah. So, got a few things on the docket today. There is a new Prime Minister of Britain, once again, after Liz Truss embarrassingly had to drop out. And then we're gonna take a look at some midterm stuff, and then yeah, we'll just roll through everything. Plan is to get about 2 to 2.5 hours and get through everything. But yeah, glad you're here. Hope you enjoy the show. Let's get started, shall we?
Privilege of my life to be able to serve the party I love and give back to the country I owe so much to.
Who is Rishi Sunak,
Great
Britain's
question.
new Prime Minister?
I am resigning.
After Liz Truss's chaotic
Fucking L.
6 weeks in charge,
We have made mistakes.
Boris Johnson's aborted comeback mission, and
Yeesh.
Penny Mordaunt's failure to secure enough Tory backers,
Rishi Sunak is there.
42-year-old Sunak is now at the helm of a country desperately in need of some stability. Let's take a look at how he got here.
That means honesty and responsibility, not fairy tales.
Southampton-born Sunak is the UK's first Prime Minister of Indian descent. His family migrated to Britain in the 1960s, a period when many people from Britain's former colonies moved to the country to help it rebuild after the Second World War. Sunak attended the exclusive private school Winchester College, studied philosophy.
So it's gonna become pretty obvious to everybody coming up here, but this guy, not exactly a member of the working class, doesn't come from a very working class background. You know, this is kind of what happens when a conservative party who markets and brands itself as a working class party runs out of acceptable people to promote to the prime minister position. They kind of run and get a brown guy to kind of take the heat off themselves. So,
politics and economics at Oxford University, and then got an MBA from Stanford University.
Jesus.
It was there he met his wife Akshata Murthy, whose father is Indian billionaire Narayan Murthy, founder of IT services giant Infosys.
Jesus.
Before entering politics, Sunak worked as an analyst at Goldman Sachs and was later a partner at 2 hedge funds. He's thought to be one of the richest members of parliament, and his wealth and private school background has come into focus during TV debates.
One of the people.
Sunak was elected to Parliament in 2015 and had a swift rise within the Conservative Party. He campaigned for leave in the EU referendum. By 2020, aged only 39, Sunak was named Finance Minister by Boris Johnson.
Delighted to be appointed. Lots to get on with. Thanks very much.
Within weeks of becoming Chancellor, Sunak found himself having to steer the UK economy as the COVID-19 pandemic began.
I said I would do whatever it takes.
He pledged to do whatever it takes to help people
Guys, you didn't need to add that little bit of...
through
Okay.
the pandemic, and developed a popular furlough scheme to support millions of people through multiple lockdowns. He was also behind the Eat Out to Help Out initiative to boost the struggling hospitality sector in summer 2020. That included waiting tables at a central London eatery.
Ah, yes.
In April
Look at him doing the working class man's work. For like, what, one night or something like that? Like,
2022, Sunak had to deal with the fallout of being fined by police for breaking lockdown rules in Downing Street in June 2020. In that same month, he and his family's finances came under intense scrutiny. It was revealed that his wife, who is an Indian citizen, had not been paying her British tax on her foreign income through her non-domiciled status. The status is available to foreign nationals who do not see Britain as their permanent home.
She's always followed all the rules, paid all the tax in the UK that is due, and paid tax internationally on her international investments. But she recognises this goes beyond just following those rules.
The revelations hurt Sunak ahead of his race against Liz Truss. Sunak eventually resigned as Chancellor in July 2022, a move that contributed to the downfall of Johnson as Tory leader and Prime Minister.
Hasta la vista, baby.
During the race to replace his former
Dude.
boss, Sunak
Boris Johnson. Now again, I am no one's conservative, but God, Boris Johnson was, if nothing else, brutally entertaining. Like, I don't know if anybody's seen that video of him like taking out that kid in like a football game or something, or a rugby game maybe. God, that shit was hilarious.
lost out to Truss in the last leadership contest. While some choose to label the multi-millionaire as out of touch, others believe Sunak is the person to bring some calm to the economy.
Ugh.
We need a return to traditional conservative economic value.
Yeah. Traditional conservative economic values, which is going to be deregulation, along with cutting social spending, I'm sure. Unfortunately, when it comes to conservative economics, there's really not too many. They don't tend to, what I noticed in the US and at least in the UK, they don't tend to argue for very different things. They mostly just want to cut a bunch of spending and then cut taxes on corporations and businesses and business owners. And like, that's kind of it. You know, they'll spend more money on like the military. They don't spend money on infrastructure. It's just kind of, all right, we'll cut a bunch of we'll cut a bunch of taxes, meaning we'll like strip the national budget from being able to do anything. And then like, inflation will come down, or, whatever they think is going to then happen. There's going to be a million businesses that crop up, usually is one of their arguments, which if you've ever, if you've ever seen like a McDonald's move into the area, when McDonald's doesn't have to pay as much in taxes, it doesn't mean that some rando down the street is going to also not get to pay as much taxes. Nice one. And the, what's it called? And like, they're going to open a burger shop. No, McDonald's is just going to continue to, reinforce their position as the local burger chain in that town. So a lot of this is always, a lot of conservative politics always comes down to, setting the stage for large companies, large corporations, and tying them to smaller businesses, pretending that the solutions that big business needs are the solutions that small business owners need, when they're completely different. They're utterly different needs. If you really wanted to look out for smaller business owners, you'd raise taxes on larger corporations, lower them on smaller ones, and have like a steadily climbing tax rate for those as companies get larger.
After all, he was proven right in his warnings that Truss's fiscal plan threatened financial stability. Sunak has pledged to bring integrity, professionalism, and accountability to government.
Can you imagine professionalism being like a thing as to why somebody thinks that they should be the head of your state? Like, I'm not really like a big, I don't want somebody who like is shooting too off the cuff. I don't want a shooter, but like, in no way do I think, when I think of like the leader of my state, I want somebody professional. I want somebody to like to make me remember like my manager at like work. Like, that is not at all what I want. But so one of the biggest critiques of Rishi Sunak is his incredible wealth. So let's take a look. This, oh God, what is this, CBS? Yeah, Money Watch, of course. Hey, can you go away? I don't want to watch you. All right, Rishi Sunak will become the wealthiest ever Prime Minister of the UK, with his family's personal fortune surpassing even that of the royals. Sunak, 42, is breaking plenty of ground as he becomes the country's third premier in under 2 months. after the UK's youngest leader since 1812, as well as the first person of color to serve in the role. Also, I just want to say, id poll, cringe. I could not care less that this dude is a person of color, because, you know, he's certainly not going to be representing the views of people in his country of color, let alone any working class person, which is going to be a majority of the state. But Sunak's personal wealth is also grabbing outsized attention, especially as he takes the helm at a time the UK is facing an economic crisis he described as, quote, profound, in his first address as prime minister. Sunak and his wife Akshata Murthy are worth a combined 837 million, or 730 million pounds, according to Sunday Times Rich List. Before her death, Queen Elizabeth was estimated to have a net worth of 424. According to Sunday Times, Sunak and his wife will become the wealthiest residents of number 10 Downing Street, the residence of the Prime Minister, surpassing that of the previous record holder. That was Edward Stanley, the 14th Earl of Derby, who served... God damn the Brits. Let's see. Let's take a source of wealth. Sunak's... That's playing, but yet that's... Okay. Sunak's grandparents immigrated from India to East Africa, where his mother and father were born, and Tanzania and Kenya, respectively. According to Encyclopedia Britannica, his parents met in England after they immigrated there in the 1960s, his father becoming a doctor and his mother a pharmacist. Born in 1980, Sunak attended the exclusive boarding school Winchester College, where he was the editor of the school paper and the, quote, head boy, which is a leadership role for the students in the UK. He then went to college at Oxford, and after graduating, worked at Goldman Sachs for several years. God, Goldman Sachs is like an immediate... I think, at least for me personally, it's like, you work at Goldman Sachs, I'm immediately skeptical of you. Sunak left Goldman to pursue an MBA at Stanford, where he met his wife, the daughter of billionaire Narayana Murthy, a co-founder of Indian technology services company whose worth pegs at $4.5 billion. After Stanford, Sunak held roles with various hedge funds. His assets are greatly buoyed by his wife's almost 1% stake in Infosys, which has a market value of about $77 billion. Yeah, this was talking about... Okay. So this is a guy who is incredibly well educated, whose wife is probably also incredibly well educated, but also an heiress, essentially. It feels like we've kind of married the aristocracy, or the monarchy, I should say, with like the business class. Like we took the monarchy from the royals. We got somebody as close as we could, shack them up with somebody who is like made in a petri dish to be a conservative prime minister. Put them both together, and now they're leading the country. Obviously, she's not leading the country, he is, but you get my drift. Like, this is, the people in Europe who enjoy the monarchy, and who revere that sort of thing should, assuming they don't have a problem with the type of monarchy and who's sitting in that monarchy, should really enjoy Sunak's wife's activities. But all that's been very, very what's the word? I think favorable towards the new prime minister. Let's take a look at something a little bit more critical.
Rishi Sunak, the wealthiest member of parliament, is totally unfit to be prime minister. He's someone who has benefited from an elite education, going to a private school,
Winchester
Oxford,
College,
having a career in banking before pursuing a career in politics.
So I want to also, before, like, just for anybody watching, I want to make this clear. The issue is not that he goes to private institutions, that he became a banker. None of these things are bad in and of themselves. Getting an education is a good thing. The problem and the critique that that I can only assume this video is going to make, but the critique that at the end of the day I'm going to be making is that when you put somebody from those environments in a leadership role to lead a country, their biases and their inclinations are going to be towards those groups that they came up through. So, you know, when you go through college, right? When anybody who's ever gone through college, if you've spoken to like maybe your parents, your grandparents, whoever it is, when you ask them about their life and about what got them into the position that they got to, most likely, and this is kind of like a natural, like human, a human instinct, we tend to extrapolate our experiences out to the rest of the world. So somebody who went to school, got a bachelor's degree, bought a home at 30, paid that house off by 45, retired at 60, and has like a huge 401k, they're living the good life, everything else, in their mind, they look back and think, that's how someone gets ahead going forward. They go to school, they get a bachelor's degree, they buy a home at 30, they pay it off at 45. All of that to them is going to be kind of where their mind, like when asked to like lead and give guidance, that's where their head is going to go. They're going to draw from their personal experiences. And the problem is when you put people like that at the head of a country who needs to be not just accountable, but also relatable to as many people as possible, they simply won't have solutions that will positively affect the largest amount of people. Rishi Sunak, at the end of the day, his economic solutions are going to be those that the 1% and the incredibly rich believe are best. But unfortunately, what's best for those groups is not what's best for the much larger, much broader population of the United Kingdom. So that is the critique. All the rest of this, like a lot of the, you know, his wife with the paying taxes, all that stuff, that's like not good. But that is the overall critique of this. There will be people who will say, oh, you're just against people making money. I have no problem with people making money. I have a problem with people who make money and then like through ways of like, you know, the highest forms of education and the what's the word? The you know, living within the top, let's say 5 to like, you know, the top 5%, coming up with solutions and attempting to represent the people in the bottom like 70%, even the bottom 80, the bottom 90. Because there's this, you know, you would have to prove to me that you understand those what's the word I'm looking for? Those lived experiences of regular people, working people on the ground.
Prime Minister, whose interests do you think he'll be serving? Rishi Sunak and his family belong to a very exclusive club who think the rules don't apply to them, including tax rules, benefiting from a non-dom status that you can't use. Taxation rules are something you don't have a choice about. Don't expect someone who has benefited from millions of pounds in tax being dodged to crack down on tax avoidance. Rishi Sunak.
Right, yeah. So also his wife is like dodging taxes. And at the end of the day, you need to get that tax money from somewhere. So when somebody like her dodges those taxes, your whatever the IRS is over there, that's when they start looking at other sources for taxable income.
Sunak's campaign video featured his parents migrating to the UK and telling a British success story.
Family is everything to me, and my family gave me opportunities they could only dream of. But it was Britain, our country, that gave them and millions like them the chance of a better future.
But as a member of the government, he's actively pushed through policy that stop people from being able to come to the UK and rebuild their lives. from the Rwanda policy that will deport refugees thousands of miles away to defending the hostile environment. Rishi Sunak is a complete, utter fraud. This again shows...
Yeah, and this is what a lot of these guys end up doing is, you know, you see it a lot with Cuban Americans also, I notice, where they'll come to America and they'll, you know, obviously, you know, they'll come to America, they'll kind of, you know, because Cuban Americans are given asylum in America, they'll come here, they'll, like, you know, build up their lives, and, you know, they'll get their little piece of the American dream, of the American way. And when asked about immigration laws and about immigration policy, they will be rather hawkish on immigration. And the reason for that is, and like the hypocrisy of that is obviously Cuban Americans, before they got the American part of that, are for the most part given blanket asylum coming out of Cuba. It's a political policy as a sort of what's the word, incentive for people to leave that country while we continue our policy of isolating that country from the rest of the world because of mostly just a lot of Cold War politics. But obviously Cuba's Cuban politics are very different from ours. I'm not like the biggest expert on it, but at the end of the day, we're the ones who have embargoes on them, and why they're still kind of living in the 1950s and 60s. But either way, it's a way for us to incentivize people to leave there, to leave Cuba and come here. And, you know, when Cuban Americans hear about immigration, they talk a lot about, well, I came here legally. And the problem with that is that we've made it so that there's no way for them to come here illegally, because by being Cuban refugees, they're immediately legally here. So it's a loophole that they use and then turn around. And when there's Latinos from other countries, such as you know, Venezuela, it doesn't matter, any country, from any South American country, any Central American country, they will be ready. They will be one of the first in line to say, no, you need to do it the right way, yada yada yada. A lot of these types of people are at the top of government, where they've made it to the top, and instead of offering that ladder to the next person, they push that ladder down and leave the people who are at the bottom where they are. It is a, I think, result of the capitalist mindset that a lot of Cuban Americans and a lot of people in general buy into, where they believe that, you know, they're in the position they're in because, you know, they did everything to earn it, when really most everybody's position in life is a result of circumstance, of luck, of a million different factors. But because in capitalism, you need to have at the very least, the at the heart of it, you need a meritocracy. So you need to believe that, you know, you earned it through merit and everything else. So, and it just inflates your ego to believe that you've done everything right, and anybody who's not doing it your way is doing it wrong.
The limitations of representation politics. Having black and brown people at the top does not mean that the lives of black and brown people
and the
in
usual
UK
cringe
and across the world will be
id
better.
poll.
In fact,
That means
they've
nothing.
gotten worse. The Tories are the party of the 1%, and they will always do the bidding of the 1%.
We inherited a bunch of formulas from the Labour Party that shoved all the funding into deprived urban areas. Then that needed to be undone. I started the work of undoing that.
Things are bleak, and there often feels like there is no hope. But like the Liverpool anthem goes, at the end of a storm, there's a golden sky. Across the country, we're seeing workers organise across so many sectors, whether it's the RMT to barristers, cleaners, teachers and nurses. What this is showing us is that another way is possible when workers stand up, fight back and hold this government to account. Whoever wins the Tory leadership race, we know that our media will not hold them to account. That's why it's so important to support independent media like Double Down News.
Yeah, so cringe to say the least. Cringe to say the least. I just noticed chat isn't showing. which is weird. Let me see. How's everyone Tuesday going? Chit chat while I try to fix. Why are you guys not showing up? Wait. No. Show up? Okay. That's odd. Don't know why that didn't show up before. Oh, probably because I know why. Okay. Okay, I understand why it did that. No. Okay. Sorry, folks. Trust me, you would not believe the amount of constant tech issues that always happen during every one of your favorite and mine streams. It is kind of part of the process. Anyway, let's keep it moving. So, I said we'd look at some of the midterms. So, let's look at some midterms info, shall we? Let's do these at like 1.25.
We are just over 2 weeks from the midterm elections when control of the House and Senate is up for grabs and millions of people.
I don't have to like intro the midterms, right? Like nobody needs me to intro that. Like midterms, November 3rd, 8th, one or the other. Let's find out. I guess I do have to intro the midterm. Let's see, midterm. Midterms. November 8th. I was right the second time. Yeah. Go out, vote, do the thing. I don't care who you vote for, just vote. I mean, I do care. You should be voting for Democrats, but either way, November 8th, go vote. Let's look at the midterms. Let's see how fucked Democrats are.
Have already turned out to vote in crucial races across the U.S. New numbers show nearly 6 million ballots have been cast in 39 states, potentially pointing to another election cycle with high voter turnout.
With Americans facing high inflation and gas prices, the economy is the top issue heading into November 8th. Republicans and Democrats are now working overtime to drive their message home to voters to mobilize their respective bases.
Are they, though?
Yesterday, a key
Are
portion, though,
Democrats
of
doing
President
that?
Biden's economic message hit a roadblock. An appeals court pausing his student debt relief plan. That decision coming the same day President Biden hit the campaign trail touting
fucking monstrous, by the way. Like, the idea that you would like block student debt relief for like everybody because you have some weird ideological opposition to people being able to live their lives is fucking weird and cringe as fuck, and fuck everybody who's been a part of that.
Democratic wins on the economy and slamming Republicans who oppose the loan forgiveness plan.
I don't want to hear it from MAGA Republicans, officials who had hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Just say Republicans, Joe.
Millions of dollars in pandemic relief loans forgiven, who now are attacking me for helping working class and middle class Americans.
All right, CNN's Nadia Romero joining us now live from Atlanta, where a Senate race could determine the balance of power in Washington. And Nadia, I voted early just the other day, and you really can feel the enthusiasm amongst the people. What are you seeing?
Yeah, Emira, it is so many people who want to come out and vote early. We saw record turnout here in the state of Georgia because the national spotlight is back on Georgia, and that Senate race could flip the Senate back to a Republican control. And so that's why it's so important for many people. I spoke with voters out today and the last couple of days who want to vote early to make sure they don't have any interruptions. And
yeah, I don't know how many of you watched the Herschel Walker and oh god, what is his name? What's the Democrat? Let's see. I'm really bad with names. Herschel Walker versus Warnock. That's what it was. The Warnock Walker debate was a mess. And, you know, not for the reasons you might think. I don't think it was a mess because I thought Herschel Walker did poorly. I think it was a mess because I think Warnock did poorly. Mainly because it seemed like, watching it, it seemed like the Warnock campaign, it just didn't take any of the debate seriously. And there was I think an expectation that like Herschel Walker would kind of implode on stage. But look, the guy is you know, he's been in the public eye for really long. He doesn't have like media training necessarily, but he knows how to kind of talk very in very quick, very memorable little blurbs to garner the most attention. And he's garnered easily the most attention so far in their race. So you know, the fact that Warnock didn't really go after him on a lot of things is disappointing and kind of shows the weakness of the Democratic strategy of, you know, just distinguishing ourselves from Republicans by letting Republicans talk forever and say a bunch of crazy stuff, and I won't say anything. And it ends up where people don't really know you and they don't know who they're voting for if they don't want to vote for a Republican. So, not good strategy. Not good strategy at all.
Nothing comes up in their personal lives that would prevent them from voting. So we're here at a polling location in Fulton County. This is where you have the majority of your population here in the state of Georgia. And you already have seen the most ballots cast so far in Fulton County as well. So you can see signs here everywhere letting people know that this is an early voting site. Now, your regular polling location for the election is not the same potentially as an early voting site. So people want to make sure they come to the right place. And then you'll just walk right inside these doors. On the other side, you can drop off your absentee ballot or you can vote in person. This has been such an important election cycle, and I want you to take a look at the numbers. We have about 7 million registered voters in the state of Georgia already, active voters. About 3.6 million of them are white, 2 million are black. And the first day of early voting was on Monday, and we saw record turnout. More than 131,000 people voted early in person on Monday. And if you compare that to 2018, our last midterm election, you're talking about 71,000. So that's an increase of 85%. That just speaks to...
Which also... traditionally, you know, we'll find out come election day, but traditionally those are also strong numbers, and those are generally good for Democrats. Overall, the higher the turnout, the better Democrats do. But also, you know, that's going to depend on a candidate, and it's also going to depend on a performance in terms of the race over the last couple of months. We'll kind of see if that trend holds, where higher turnout pays off. But at least those numbers are, at the very least, those numbers are a bit reassuring that people are paying attention and voting, especially in Georgia.
How many people know that it's important to participate in our elections. Now, there have been efforts over the past few years to really decrease early voting, to take away ballot boxes in certain locations. If you talk to Republicans, they say it's about voter security. If you talk to Democrats, and they say it's about limiting that right to vote, because early voting tends to favor Democrats or people who lean more left in the political spectrum. Now, we spoke with people who came out today.
The only reason why you would like take, like, if there's a drop-off box in like a neighborhood and you're like, well, for security purposes, that was really unnecessary. You know that? You're kind of in the way of the camera. Can I help you with something? Hi. Can I help you with something? You're supposed to go sleep on the bed back there. That's what you're supposed to do. Go sleep. Stop messing with stuff. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, there is no reason why you would take a drop-off box out of a neighborhood for security purposes, and because at the end of the day, it's like that drop-off box is no more or less secure than any other drop-off box in another location. So the only reason, the only logical reason you take it out is you don't want those people voting. You know, you can say like, oh, the more drop-off boxes there are, the more opportunities that it could be any drop box then. But if you look at the trend and which ones that they end up moving out of neighborhoods, it's usually not heavy leaning Republican neighborhoods, is it? So.
Who said they're concerned about the governor's race. Governor Kemp is the incumbent, going up against Stacey Abrams, the Democrat, who has made really national waves because of her advocacy for voting. And then you have the Senate race, of course, of Reverend Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker. That has gotten a lot of attention because of some of the scandals that have come out of that race as well. Amara, Boris?
Larry, great to have you. Appreciate you joining us this weekend. How big of a factor do you think this legal challenge of the student debt plan might play in the midterms?
Well, it could play a big role because if you look at the Democratic electorate, young people are the most pro-democratic of any age cohort. And they're also least likely to vote in a midterm election. Now, they've shown more interest this year, mainly because of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. But this issue relates very much to them and also to older people who are still paying off their debts. So if Democrats position this well, if they use the combination of the Republican opposition to the loan forgiveness program together with the Republican opposition to Roe v. Wade, they might be able to stimulate a larger turnout among the youth age cohort.
Speaking of turnout, new numbers.
Also, here's the thing. Also, the student debt forgiveness stuff is fairly broad. Like people in their, 40s and 50s who might still have student loans, this is going to appeal to. Obviously, people in their 20s and 30s and early 40s, it's going to appeal to. But I genuinely don't think Democrats have done enough to communicate that and put that to the forefront. Along with their other economic plans and anything that they want to do going into the second half of Biden's term, quite frankly, from where we sit right now, I'm not sure if they've done enough. We're going to take a look at kind of voters' issues and trends after this, but the Democrats is I think volley generally has been rather weak in terms of making their own argument for themselves. Republicans, on the other hand, as with kind of all out of power parties, there's always an advantage to not being in power and being able to kind of complain and critique everything that the party in power is doing. It gives you it gives you a pretty favorable position. So, and they've been really going on the war front with the anti-trans stuff and all the other culture war nonsense that they've been building up. So, they, as usual, Republicans a good bit better at messaging than Democrats.
Numbers show voters have really poured some enthusiasm ahead of Election Day into the ballot box, including in Georgia, a midterm record on the first day of early voting. Do you have any indication as to which party this kind of turnout is benefiting right now?
Party?
Well, generally speaking, especially with early turnout, Democrats do better than Republicans, in part because Republicans prefer to vote on Election Day. So to the extent that you have a robust turnout in Georgia and elsewhere prior to the election, that's certainly a good sign for Democrats. Of course, you never know what the turnout on Election Day is going to be. It probably will be strong. The indicators are that enthusiasm levels are up from both sides. So it might be a wash in the end, or this early indication could be a good sign for Democrats in certain states like Georgia.
Yeah, I'm curious about what races specifically you're watching as we talk about those in Georgia, very competitive Senate races there. Where else in the map is your focus going to be on election night?
Certainly Arizona. You rarely have a contrast in tickets the way you have in Arizona on a wide range of issues, but certainly on election denialism and democracy. So that is a key race, not just for Arizona, not just for the 2024 presidential election, but for American democracy. But there are loads of states that have very competitive battles that will determine the composition of the Senate and the House. Nevada would be another choice. A whole bunch of them in the Midwest, and like Ohio and Wisconsin, as well as North Carolina. Iowa now has come on the board. So there are a lot of races that we're watching, and any single race for the Senate could really determine the makeup of the Senate for the next 2 years.
Yeah, it's a 50-50 split right now, so it could go either direction. There is a new poll from the New York Times. It finds 49% of likely voters support Republican congressional nominees, 45% back Democrats. What are the chances you think that Democrats can buck history and keep control of Congress in these midterms?
Elections are crazy. Unpredicted things happen every 2 years. Having said that, it will be a real shock if Democrats are able to hold the House. The Republicans only need to pick up net 5 seats, and I'd be of the number that they need. So even 49, 46 seems close, and the overall polling average essentially has Democrats and Republicans tied around 46% for the House.
Right, yeah. Also, yeah, in terms of the House, so the House this year, it seems like is going to be a lot harder to hold. The Senate is going to be a bit different, but yeah, with the candidates that the Republican Party has been fronting, it'll be interesting to kind of see what kind of candidates are acceptable to a general election audience. Obviously during the primaries, we've seen a handful of, as Biden puts it, MAGA Republicans, but quite frankly, they're just Republicans. There's, the extreme end of their party's ideology. But we'll kind of see how they end up by the end of all of this. Like if they can win general elections, doesn't hold super well. I'll definitely say that.
But that isn't good enough for Democrats. They need a lead, a substantial lead of at least several points, maybe more than that, in the generic ballot, and they don't have it. Now, there are 2 weeks remaining. President Biden was right the other day when he said there's still enough time for another shift. We've had a roller coaster election. Democrats ahead, Republicans ahead, then Democrats ahead, now Republicans ahead. So the final 2 weeks are absolutely critical for early voting and for the election day vote. Too early to call things definitively, but I think the Republicans are clear favorites for the House.
And which House races are you watching most closely? We talked about the Senate. Are there any House races that you think could be a bellwether on that Tuesday night that'll give you an indication of where Congress is going to lean?
Well, you have to look at the East Coast. Obviously, you'll have the results, at least in races that are separated by a few points between the candidates. I'm in Virginia. I would pick Virginia's 2nd District in the Virginia Beach area. The incumbent, Elaine Luria, as a member of the January 6th committee, has received a lot of national attention because of that. She's opposed by a Republican with Jim Kiggins with a military background, nurse in the state Senate. It's a very evenly matched contest. And if that flips from Democratic to Republican, to me, it's an early indication, again, not definitive, but an early indication that the House will probably go Republican.
It is the greatest privilege of my life to be able to serve the...
All right. I thought I closed that. Anyway. So, yeah, let's continue going. So this let's see some of the issues that people are.
15 days from now, key races across the country will determine which party controls the House and the Senate. And a new NBC News poll reveals that a deeply divided nation appears uniquely motivated this year to get out and vote. In fact, more than 5 million people have already cast ballots in early voting underway in many, many places. NBC national political correspondent Steve Kornacki with us again to break it down. So our new poll shows enthusiasm is sky high for this midterm election.
Yes, 4 years ago in the last midterm election, we set a record for turnout. I think we could be poised to shatter that record in 2022. But I think interestingly here, it's not quite even between the two parties. Look at this here. The highest level of interest, according to our poll, in the midterm election, Republicans with an enthusiasm advantage over Democrats. Both of these numbers are extremely high, but it's nearly 80% of Republicans who express the highest level of interest. It's almost 70% of Democrats, so a little bit more on the Republican side. One thing that unites both parties, though, is what is driving their enthusiasm? Basically, the other party. This is a question of, do you think the other party's agenda, if left unchecked, will ruin the country? Look at this. Each party, basically 8 and 10, say, yes, it would.
It's so striking because it just shows the vitriol among both sides. It's not, I differ on the tax rates. It's, I think the other side is going to destroy this country. It's an incredible poll finding. Let's
be really, really clear here. There's a lot of this kind of politics that has been going around for I have been hearing the Democrats are going to destroy this country nonsense for literally all of my life. You know, since what? Like, I was born in 92. My entire life, I have always heard the the Republicans consistently say that about Democrats. It is a key part of their politics. Now, recently, you've begun to hear that from Democrats a lot more once Trump took power. So to say that this is anything new isn't, at least to me personally, isn't really new. This is a rather old dynamic. The difference is you're hearing it from different people now. You're hearing it from both sides as opposed to just Republicans, who are always saying that Democrats are trying to destroy this country. That is the most consistent message they have always put out there.
Talk about that generic ballot. When we ask people, generally speaking, who would you rather have, a Republican or a Democrat controlling Congress?
So this is the first time we use what we call our likely voter model here, looking at that enthusiasm level, past participation. And when you look at the likely voter model, we show a very close race here on the generic ballot, but Republicans with an advantage of 1 point over Democrats.
Other polls have shown, and ours does too, that Republicans have some momentum here around some of the top issues that voters say they care about.
Yeah, if you're a Republican, it's that enthusiasm I just showed you that's good news for you. But then it's also this. Take a look here. Top issues we ask folks, what's your number one issue? You do see threats to democracy at the top of the list, and the Democrats overwhelmingly have an advantage there. But look.
So naturally, the threats to democracy are going to be a reaction. So from Democratic voters and from, I think, normie Democratic voters, a lot of that number is going to come from January 6th. A lot of that number is going to come from seeing a few of the kind of crazier Republican nominees for the House. Obviously, you have your Lauren Boeberts and your Marjorie Taylor Greens, who are national embarrassments. But, you know, that's going to be a lot of their concern. But that number is not going to be all Democrats. There is going to be a size of that number. I don't think they break down what percentage of each, but there's going to be a sizable portion of that number that is Republicans. That is going to be Republican voters who are worried about voter fraud, even though they've never been able to prove that there was any. They're worried about illegal aliens voting, or whatever it might be. At the end of the day, they're in their mind already have it set up for them that if they end up losing in 22 and in 24 and going forward, and we see that a lot with a lot of the candidates, especially in the House, if Republicans lose, they're perfectly comfortable with just saying that the election was stolen. That if we win, it was a fair election. If we lose, then there's no way it was then it wasn't a fair election. So that's where a lot of that number is going to cut, at least a decent portion. I'd bet 9% of that number, if not around 10, about halfway split, is going to be Democrats and Republicans. I think Democrats only hold a slight edge in terms of concerns about threats to democracy. Obviously, jobs in the economy. Oh my God. Sorry, guys. Obviously, jobs in the economy, I think is going to be pretty broad. Kind of both parties have their qualms with the economy right now, with inflation being where it is. That's where you'll kind of see a lot of overlap of Democrats and Republicans agreeing on that, with inflation and prices being what they are. I think I went to go buy eggs. It was $5 or something, $4 or $5 the other day, which is insane for fucking eggs. Insane for milk. Milk's $4 or $5 or something like that. It's quite insane. Anyway, yeah, let's let homeboy.
Jobs in the economy and cost of living, essentially inflation. If you combine those two numbers, that's 35%. That's more than one.
You gotta really love how they try to make these what's it called? These CNN, what is this, USA Today? I do really love their effort to make these a little more entertaining. We got a touch screen we can draw on.
One out of every 3 voters. And on that combination, the economy and inflation, Republicans have an advantage of 36 points in our poll. And you take that one step further, you just ask folks, what do you think of Joe Biden's performance on the economy? Less than 40% approve of that. And then you ask, how do you think the economy is going to do?
And unfortunately, Democrats have not been good about fighting back against this messaging. They just haven't. They've been content with ceding the ground to Republicans, that any of this has to do with any of Biden's economic policies. You know, at the end of the day, with the war still going on, with gas prices still being wildly affected, we see this kind of inflation also around the world. So it's not really unique to the U.S. So the idea that, like, you know, the U.S. is uniquely going through this moment is just untrue. You know, I mean, inflation is bad right now, but again, I think we've talked about this before. Unfortunately, Biden is not capable of addressing these problems with the solutions that will fix them. You know, Biden being a more conservative Democrat, what's the word? Limits him in his ability to really pick meaningful changes in terms of economic policy. You know, when all you are is a Phillips head screwdriver, the only problems you can fix are for Phillips heads. But you know, they're like, these problems, especially today, there are solutions out there that can absolutely fix these problems, but they're not the things that Biden is capable of pushing for. They're just not things he'll ever push for.
Over the next year, half of voters say it's going to get worse. So there's real pessimism there.
And then in the general,
and we've all heard the recession.
He obviously
we've all heard the recession.
So is former
worries.
President Trump, who looms large in this midterm.
This is the X factor. We show you Democrats still in the game on that generic ballot. And you see, with numbers like this, why? Well, Joe Biden and the Democrats are unpopular. But look at this. The Republicans.
Let's see. Joe Biden overall. Underwater by 3 points. Not terribly awful. Okay, so Joe Biden's actually about even. If you look down in the corner, I don't think you guys can see it. But the polls, what's it called? Margin for error is about 3 points. So, you know, he's probably a bit closer, give or take. The problem is, best case scenario, he's even. He's breaking even. Worst case scenario, he's 6 points under. So, not great. Democratic Party, 10 points under. That's not shocking. The party kind of fucking sucks. Republican Party. Oh my God, Jesus Christ. Wow, the Republican Party and, okay, 34% for both of them. But negative ratings for Trump are a bit higher than the party. So, you know, I mean, these are going to be general. From what I understand, these aren't like in-party polls, but you know, it'll be interesting to see how much of these numbers actually end up affecting Republicans. I think it's more likely, because Democrats are in power, that these negative numbers and their net negatives are going to mean a lot more than Republicans' net negatives.
Republican Party itself and Donald Trump even less popular. Very unusual circumstance to have a former president this involved, this central to a midterm. Democrats hope, to the extent Trump is on voters' minds, it gives them a boost.
All right, Steve Kornacki, thank you as always. See you in 15 days, if not before.
Hey, thanks for watching. Don't miss the Today Show every weekday.
Oh, shush. Let's see. All right, so with the midterms coming up, we need to talk about Arizona for a quick moment. So we spoke earlier about the threats to democracy, and I mentioned how the polling numbers right now most likely show that threats to democracy are a concern of Republicans and Democrats, and the different types of threats to democracy are wildly different depending on that party. Democrats obviously are worried about January 6th insurrectionist types and Biden presidency deniers, right? That's who like they're kind of concerned with. So let's take a look, because this is happening in Arizona. I believe it is Arizona. Let's take a look here, because this is part of the strategy of the Republican Party that has been pushing a lot of this voter fraud stuff. Because as you tend to push on voter fraud and you keep harping that the ballots can't be trusted, that there's harvesting, that there's all this stuff that they've never been able to actually prove, you get people like this. So let's take a look.
New at 6, 2 more reports of voter intimidation filed with the state's top election office less than 3 weeks from Election Day.
Outside groups now apparently trying to sow doubt in the election process here in our state. Our Nicole Grigg has been following this story for days, talking with ballot watchers outside 2 drop-box locations here in Maricopa County.
And Nicole, you learned that same group that you encountered are the ones that just had the reports filed against them.
That's right, and I have been looking into this group for days, calling themselves Clean Elections USA. They were outside a
Notice that. Clean elections. That's the thing that they're, it's, that's the kind of language they like to use when pretending to care about, election fraud.
Dropbox filming and recording early voters. Now they're part of a formal voter intimidation complaint. Outside the Maricopa County election headquarters, I found this group on Wednesday and wanted to see what they were doing.
Shouts out to Little Caesars.
What's doing out here?
You know what? We're just out here watching boxes. And before I make any kind of statement or anything, I'd like to get in a suntan, getting some vitamin D.
So you're getting vitamin D, or you're watching the drop boxes?
Both, yeah.
Has anyone responded to you?
People are so
Frame
funny.
it through? Has anyone said anything?
Before I say any more, I need to call somebody.
Okay.
So.
Who are you going to call?
Give me just a minute.
Okay. What organization are you with?
It's Clean Elections USA.
The man who told me his name is Tom wouldn't say who he was calling. He wasn't alone, so I tried asking this woman too.
I'm not supposed to be having a discussion with anybody about anything. I'm just here.
You're just
taking in the vitamin D.
And you're
Just here. Just hanging out. What are you doing? You have like one more time. You're getting kicked out.
recording, it looks like.
The vitamin D flying into my body.
You're recording the vitamin D flying into your body. Okay. So are you recording the drop boxes then?
I'm really not able to comment.
Seriously, you guys can come up with a better... Conservatives, Republicans. Do better. This is sad. This is like what I expect a 3-year-old to say as a lie.
The two had cameras pointed towards the Dropbox location. They had a pizza, lawn chairs, and a dog with them sitting and watching.
Look at that good boy.
We started looking into the group, Clean Elections
I'm
USA,
most upset
who
that
the
they
man
brought a
said
dog
he's
into
with.
this
According to the website,
nonsense.
they're recruiting people across the country to watch ballot drop boxes in an effort to detect fraud.
Let's go to Melody Jennings. Melody.
Earlier this
week. Okay. So, yeah, I want everyone to be really, really, like, open-eyed about this. The Republican Party has convinced their voters that they need to go set up a lawn chair outside, like outside on like a Monday, to go stare at a ballot drop-off box, because then they will be able to not just film but detect some kind of voter fraud or voter guys, you won't know the difference between guy X coming to drop off his ballot and guy Y coming to drop off the dead person he's voting for's ballot. Like, you're not going to tell the difference between those two things, guys. assume, you know, under the belief that that's going to happen, you are literally just sitting outside for no reason whatsoever in a lawn chair eating a Little Caesars pizza. You know, this is not the investigation you guys, this is not the stakeout I think you guys think it is.
Week, Steve Bannon hosted a woman by the name of Melody Jennings, who says she's the founder of Clean Elections USA, and put out a call for action.
People are getting the word. They are showing up. Our people are showing up and gathering around boxes.
The founder says they're going to find, quote, mules, referring to the film 2,000 Mules.
Person picking up ballots and running them to...
Oh, yeah, I remember hearing about this. I haven't watched this. I'm sure it's trash, but love it.
A movie that makes unfounded claims that there was a coordinated effort across the country to harvest ballots for Joe Biden.
What these mules don't understand is just because, you know, I put a fuzzy...
Imagine, like, starting an organization, like, getting a social media off the ground, hiring at least one person to organize volunteers, doing all of this because you watched, like, a bad documentary. Like, imagine that.
Still shot up on True Social that doesn't look like anything. We're geo-tracking them. We've got cameras on the back sides of them.
On Monday, this early voter filing a complaint with election officials, saying he and his wife were filmed and photographed outside a Mesa Dropbox location and were accused by a group calling them a mule. After an investigation by the DOJ was launched, Clean Election USA found...
Which also, guys, we understand what this is. They're going to pretend that this isn't like voter intimidation, but it is. Because at the end of the day, you know, what they did in the South to make sure that black people didn't vote was they sat outside of their voting locations and would just idly stand there, just kind of hang out. And when they do that, you know, if you're like a regular person, you're not really 100% sure as to what you need to like you don't know what these people are doing. You can kind of assume, since they're being a bit weird towards you, that they're staring at you. You kind of know that they're not there just idly. They're obviously there to make you a bit nervous in voting. That's what their purpose is to just kind of stand by. And, you know, they're not doing anything. They're just standing around where you're trying to exercise your right to vote. Nothing weird going on. But we all know. Like, we all know that. We all know the vibe check does not check out. We understand this.
Founder posting publicly that they were not a part of Monday's intimidation report. But we found some other posts as well. These made the same day referenced in the voter intimidation complaint, 10/17/2022. Trumper Mel, as Jennings calls herself, posted a photo of what appears to be the same car, same voter, and same Dropbox location. Except this shot is from the ground and was posted before the surveillance video on the Dropbox was publicly released by officials in response to ABC 15's public records request.
Like, who told you that you can't comment?
I'm not able to comment.
Now today, we've learned the Secretary of State receiving a new voter intimidation complaint. This one about the group we recorded in Phoenix on Wednesday. The complaint has photos and images from hours before we met the same group. The complaint says camo-clad people were taking pictures of me, my license plate, as I dropped our mail-in ballots in the box. It goes on to say that...
Yeah, so they're complaining, they're like trying to catch harvesters, but what they're doing is harvesting personal data about people, about randos on the street. And then, you know, they'll take those pictures of them, they'll take pictures of their license plates, and then they'll go on Facebook, they'll go and try to find them, try to like confirm their identity, and then harass them online. That's what's going to end up happening.
That they basically said they're taking pictures looking for some fantasy BS on the voting citizenry. So this latest complaint is now being sent to the DOJ for investigation. Now, it's not illegal to stand on a public sidewalk recording.
Not at all.
But Arizona's Secretary of State says behaviors that interfere with voters' right to cast their ballot, that's when it becomes illegal intimidation. As for the
right, and they'll probably use the argument that they'll say like, hey, I'm not interfering with anybody. I'm just like standing here filming them. But what you are is kind of putting them under a bit of mental duress at the moment, and you know, invading a bit of their like personal space and filming them. So that's the kind of key here, is you work as close to the line as you can for intimidation and for harassment, but that technically isn't legal harassment. But sticking with Arizona, I do believe, I'm pretty sure it's let's take a look. Yep, Arizona. Man, Arizona. What is going on, Arizona? So I live in Colorado. Arizona is a stone's toss from us, and seems like shit's getting really weird there. But let's take a look to see what is going on.
Has been more forceful in spreading Donald Trump's lies about the election than the Arizona Republican candidate for governor, Carrie Lake. When I sat down with her earlier...
I have. So after looking at that, I want to really get a good example. I've mentioned some of the MAGA-style Republicans that have been going. This is one of the more prominent ones.
Here this week, we talked about her campaign and some of her policy proposals. That interview aired on GMA3 on
and remember,
Friday.
she's like
when
running
Lake
to be
brought up
governor
false claims about election
of all
fraud,
of
the
Arizona.
conversation turned to 2020. Here is that part of the interview. As governor, would you seek to change the election laws? And specifically, would you look to limit early voting and mail-in voting in Arizona?
I don't know exactly how we'll do it, but we will secure our elections, restore.
Right. So that's, as usual, it's like, will you do these specific things? I'm not sure what we're going to do, but we're going to do the thing that we're just going to like shore up the elections. We're just going to, we're going to really secure those elections. It's like, are you going to secure them by doing X and Y? We're just going to secure them. I'm not sure how we're going to do it yet. That's definitely what they're going to end up doing.
Restore faith in our elections. Make sure our elections are honest and transparent.
Americans generally have faith in elections. It's only conservatives
specifically early voting and mail-in
who
voting, which you've
don't
been
have
very
faith in our
critical of.
elections.
Would you seek to limit it?
I think,
There's a lot of it in this
going
state.
back to when I first started voting back in the 80s, we had election day. The Constitution says election day. It doesn't say election season, election month. And the longer you drag that out, the more fraught with problems there are.
So the problem is, so here's the thing. What she's saying, like from a theoretical standpoint, makes sense. The longer you give for people to vote, the longer that there is a possibility that there is voter fraud, right? That is true. That is not true, but that is that tracks logically. Here's the problem. Not once has anybody been able to present any evidence for that voter fraud. So it's one thing to make the argument that, hey, the longer you give people to vote, the more fraud is possible. It's another to say you gave people a lot of time to vote. There was fraud. One of them is theoretical. The other one is factual. Unfortunately, and I'm sure to her knowledge, the facts are not on her side on this one. We do not have a voter fraud problem in this country. One of the functions of this country that actually seems to work fairly well is our voting systems.
Saw problems this week with Katie Hobbs, my opponent. She just sent out 6,000 ballots that went the wrong type of ballots to the wrong people.
Right, they only had the federal, but she was the one that pointed this out and said
well,
she's
I don't
correcting
care
it.
if she pointed out.
Earlier this week, Lake's opponent, Katie Hobbs, who also serves as the current Secretary of State.
Also, I want to say Katie Hobbs did not want to show up to a debate with this lady, which is embarrassing. You should, in almost every instance, debate these people and fucking crush them. But unfortunately, liberals are not ready for that. Which is disappointing, to say the least.
Announced that 6,000 ballots printed with only federal races were incorrectly sent to voters. Corrected ballots are now being mailed out.
My question is whether or not you would limit mail-in voting, limit early voting, given that so...
Yeah, so, first of all, it's 6,000 ballots. That's not actually that much in terms of the population of Arizona. Like, let's see, Arizona voter registration. Let's see. Can I get numbers? Let's see. Do we have... Okay, voter statistics, Arizona Secretary of State. Here we go. Let's take a look. There are 4 million people who are registered to vote. That's 6,000 people. Not that 6,000 is a nothing number, but guys, there's 4 million people. It was 6,000 ballots. That is a rather small and honestly very easy problem to fix. Like, that's pretty insignificant.
So many people in the state, it's like 90% vote early in the state or use early ballots.
We want to shore up our elections so they are.
Right. 90% of people in the state vote by mail and vote early, and she wants that number to be 0. She wants those people to not be able to do that. And why would you want to do that? If 90% of the people who are voting are doing it in one specific way, let's pretend like, oh, they all go to in-person voting. Would you then and you then close in-person voting? What do you think's going to happen? That number's going to go down. You drive down turnout. That's the point of this, to drive down turnout. And who does turnout and who does specifically mail-in turnout affect? Democrats the most. Democrats vote more by mail than Republicans do. So it's just it's just political strategy, and it's a disenfranchisement.
Very honest, and every voter knows that it's an honest system. Let me just give you a couple facts.
Yeah.
2,000 mail-in ballots
Also, my
were
favorite
accepted
thing
by Maricopa County.
Also, my favorite thing is when they say, I want every voter. Not every voter is ever going to trust the system. There will always be people who will weaponize their supposed belief in our system to argue whenever they lose that it wasn't fair. There will always be a percentage of people who won't like the outcome and will blame the voting system. That will always happen in every system. In every race, there's always a percentage of the population. So it's always moving this goalpost to, I want everybody. You're never going to get everybody. You can get 95% of the population, 9% of the population, maybe. But specifically worrying about, a couple thousand people, like the crazies who are stalking people trying to vote, you claim to try to represent them, which will end up affecting the other couple millions in your state.
After Election Day in 2020, after Election Day.
Sure.
That was a new one on us, so we took the claim to election officials in Maricopa County who told us it's just not true. In fact, no ballots were accepted after the Election Day 7 p.m. deadline. Some ballots were scanned the next morning, giving them a timestamp after Election Day, but again, those ballots were turned in on Election Day by the deadline. Lake offered other unsubstantiated and disproven claims. Arizona's 2020 election was the most scrutinized in the state's history, and there is no evidence of widespread fraud. A comprehensive investigation by Maricopa County found, quote, 100 potentially questionable ballots cast out of 2.1 million.
Jesus.
Hardly enough to change the results.
I certainly hope that we're going to talk.
And they'll say, oh, but that's like 100 votes. So obviously, no, guys, it's like less than 1%. And questionable doesn't even mean fraudulent. It just means like there might have been issues on them. But again, this is when Republicans say they're worried about threats to democracy. This is what they're talking about.
More than about elections today, because I sat here today to talk about my policies.
Well, we've been talking about a whole bunch of other things besides elections, but since you brought up...
I find it funny
since you brought up... I didn't ask about 2020. I just asked
I do find it funny that
voters.
the media thinks I'm only talking about elections. I'm talking about a lot of things.
But let's be completely clear. You actually brought it up, not me. I asked you about the rules and about early voting and if you would change the rules. I didn't ask you about 2020.
And I want to
you brought it
explain
up.
to you why mail-in ballots can be fraught with error.
Why?
Can be. Again, notice she's playing a lot with language. Can be. That's fine. Anything can be fraught with error. Anything can. but you have to prove that there is a systemic bias towards that error or systemic fraud happening. None of those things are happening.
It is that you have not said, or maybe you'll do it now, you have not said that you will accept the certified results of this election even if you lose this election.
I will accept the results of this election if we have a fair, honest, and transparent election. Absolutely 100%.
Fair, honest,
So
yeah.
if
you know, which the only way that she'll accept a fair, honest, whatever she said, is if she wins. If she loses, then it wasn't fair, it wasn't honest, it wasn't any of those things. You know, this is a crybaby activity here.
If you were to lose and you're ahead, but if you were to lose and you went out and you had all your appeals, they went through.
As long as it's fair, honest, and transparent.
It's certified. I mean, who's going to determine that? Are you going to determine that, or what, if it's
Looks like my opponent might have to determine that.
Well, she is the Secretary.
That's an interesting conundrum, isn't it?
You said something last week. You said that there were 740,000 ballots with no chain of custody. Those ballots shouldn't have been counted. Are you really saying that you would throw out the ballots of 740,000,
No,
three-quarters of a million Arizonans? I mean, those were
740,000 ballots violated chain of custody requirements in Maricopa County.
I mean, first of all, it's not true. I mean, the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors put out a 98-page report that went through these allegations.
That is a fact. Check your facts.
We took that claim to Maricopa.
You know, and unfortunately, this is one of those things where, like, this is where political rhetoric drives up to a reality, because at the end of the day, she's just gonna say that stuff strongly, and you know, she'll just say the, like, no, this is a fact, this thing, and like reporters, whoever, will say, actually, we checked, it's not, like, what you're saying isn't true. And that's why, like, that all the fake news nonsense that we heard was so dangerous. It's also why Republicans have, you know, they might not like claim the fake news, like, rhetoric stuff, but they'll say everything but it, because at the end of the day, they don't want people listening to journalists, listening to news folks, or any of that. They want people to just be eating up their rhetoric.
Maricopa County officials who refuted Lake and pointed to the statement they issued back in May, saying that the county always had control of the ballots, adding they, quote, were sealed in envelopes and secured in boxes that bipartisan couriers are prohibited from opening.
But just to be clear, the Republicans on the Board of Supervisors, the Republican governor, now the Republican candidate for Senate running along with you, the Republican Attorney General under Donald Trump, Bill Barr, all said that there wasn't, you know, that the election was not stolen.
Are we going to sit and litigate this?
No,
I'm happy to
I'm
do
just,
it.
I'm just wondering why they would all lie.
But you guys are obsessed. Well, we have a lot of corruption in this system, and they don't.
The person who wants to, like, enact legislation is telling somebody else they're obsessed with this or that political topic. Right. You're obsessed. Oh my God, you're so obsessed.
A lot of people who were responsible for that election know that there were rules broken and laws broken, and they don't want to admit fault, okay?
Like Bill Barr.
And that's fine. We're going to go forward, and we're going to make sure going forward our elections are secure.
I would also love for her to point to, like, the laws broken that she's talking about, which obviously she can't. Like, it's also one of these things is, like, you know, when you can't really point to anything, you know, there's not really a whole lot you can say on that one. Like, you know, when you can't point to very much. You just kind of say the thing you want to say, regardless of whether it's true or not, and move on. And, you know, if your voters ever see the fact check, maybe they do, maybe they don't, but, you know, all you have to do is undermine the belief in the person who's, like, fact checking them, and you don't have to worry about any of that shit. But all right, so I'm gonna take the hopefully one and only break here. Let me just grab some water. Just kind of reset. We're gonna be back in about, like, maybe 5 minutes or so. And we're gonna come back. We're gonna pick up with. I just saw this. I just kind of saw this go up, It's gonna be, we're gonna talk about the apparently a St. Louis school shooting. So it's gonna be a bit of a touchy subject, and then we'll kind of continue on with where we were, with the other scheduled stuff. Unless I make an executive decision, we'll find out. But either way, yeah, stick around. Yeah, we'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. We have some breaking news. Let's go take a look. Adidas has ended their deal with Kanye to the West after anti-Semitism controversy. Well, we all can't say nobody can say they should be super surprised by this. 1 second. More target. No. Stop. Messing with it. All right. Sorry about that. Anyway. Adidas has cut ties with Ye, the musician and fashion designer formerly known as Kanye West, marking the end of a partnership that made the company billions, but was soured by the artist's repeated brazen anti-Semitic and offensive remarks. This is a case of playing yourself right here. After weeks of silence and mounting public pressure, the German sportswear giant announced it would, quote, end production of Yeezy branded products and stop all payments to Ye and his companies, effective immediately. Adidas does not tolerate anti-Semitism and any other sort of hate speech. The company said in a statement, adding that Ye's recent comments and actions have been unacceptable, hateful, and dangerous. The move comes weeks after Adidas announced it was conducting a review of its collaboration with Ye and his Yeezy brand, shortly after the artist sparked outrage for wearing a, quote, White Lives Matter t-shirt at his Paris Fashion Week show. In the days that followed, he made anti-Semitic comments on Instagram and Twitter, triggering suspensions, and continued his diatribe on a podcast where he doubled down on anti-Semitic tropes. In that same interview, he also falsely claimed that George Floyd, a black man killed by Minneapolis police, had died from a fentanyl injection. As we've kind of heard that before from Candace Owens and others, and other conservative types, it's just kind of not true. You could make the argument, you could make the claim that he had fentanyl in his system. You cannot make the claim that played a higher percentage role in his death than the knee obstructing oxygen. So yeah, it's a pretty weak one. Let's see what else. Right. Leaked video earlier this month also captioned using anti-Semitic language during an interview with Fox News host Tucker Carlson, released by Motherboard. In it, he suggested his kids should learn about Hanukkah and not Kwanzaa because, quote, at least it would come with some financial engineering. Weird. Ye's commentary coincides with a broader rise in anti-Semitism across the country, experts say. Research for the Anti-Defamation League identified 7,343 anti-Semitic incidents in 2021 and a 5% jump from the year prior and 55% increase from 2019. Adidas' decision to end its deal with Ye comes 2 days after hate groups appeared to use his celebrity to advance their agendas. On Saturday, an anti-Jewish group displayed a banner over the Los Angeles highway overpass that read, "Honk if you know Kanye is right about the Jews," while offering Nazi salutes to oncoming traffic. A picture of the incident went viral. Elsewhere in California, law enforcement officials scrambled to find individuals who distributed anti-Semitic leaflets that claimed COVID-19 was a Jewish plot. Yeah. Kind of as usual, the Jews are kind of the classic rock of groups to hate on. We really shouldn't be super surprised by this. These are obviously fascists, so yeah. The backlash against Ye has been growing for weeks. Several companies, including French fashion house Balenciaga, talent agency CAA, and Hollywood financier and producer MRC, have all ended relationships with the performer. Numerous celebrities and other public figures have also condemned the performer's comments and called out Adidas for continuing to do business with him. At Adidas, drop Kanye West. Actor and director America Ferrera posted on Instagram, "This is despicable. Do not amplify this man's influence." Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. It took Adidas only a week or something, How long did it say? It's like several weeks, yeah? How long move comes? Yeah, weeks after, yeah. Like, guys, you didn't need a thorough investigation for this one. It's all pretty out in the open. On Monday, Kim Kardashian, Kanye's ex-wife, tweeted, "Hate speech is never okay or excusable. I stand together with the Jewish community and call on the terrible violence and hateful rhetoric towards them to come to an immediate end." Thanks, Kim. Ye has had a significant impact on Adidas, with Yeezy generating estimated $2 billion a year, close to 10% of the company's annual revenue, Morningstar analyst Dana Schwartz said. The company said in its statement that terminating the relationship was expected to have a short-term negative impact of up to $250 million on the company's net income in 2022, given the high seasonality of the fourth quarter. Ye, who has won 24 Grammy Awards and released numerous critically acclaimed platinum records, started working with Adidas in 2013. The partnership eventually made Ye a billionaire and provided Adidas with a new customer base. People who are dick riders for Kanye West. Let's be clear, all his clothes have been overpriced, uninteresting fashion wear. But Ye began airing his grievances with Adidas this summer when he falsely accused the company of stealing his designs, calling out chief executive Casper Rost by name in a tweet. He went after the company again in early October, releasing a 30-minute online video of a meeting with Adidas executives, whom he accused of doing, quote, wrong by the company, by the business, and by the partnership. Ye also showed the executives a pornographic film. Lovely. In an appearance on the podcast Drink Champs, Ye launched into a 10-minute rant about Jewish people and called out Adidas' delay in ending the partnership. I think about it being Adidas. I can say anti-Semitic things and Adidas can't drop me. Now what? Well, hindsight's 2020, I guess. Ye's comments presented a particularly sensitive challenge for Adidas, given the company's history. Its founder, Adolf Dassler, was a member of the Nazi Party and outfitted the Hitler Youth. You know, I'm just going to say it. You would think if Kanye knew that history, he'd be totally okay with... maybe that's why he thought he'd never get dropped. What if that's like... He thought he'd always be okay. Like he was like, nah, come on, they're in the bag. They know. Jewish groups pressed Adidas to end its partnership with Yeezy at a time of rising anti-Semitism when incidents in the U.S. reached an all-time high in 2021. Such statements are more than damning. They are dangerous, wrote Jonathan, CEO, Anti-Defamation League. Yeah, that's an L. You know, Kanye is... Let me do a bit of predictive work here. Kanye is obviously going to complain that he got dropped. He's going to kind of gaslight everybody into thinking, or at the very least his weird Kanye mega fans, that he has a right to, fashion houses, that he has a right to being in a deal with Adidas, that any of these are things he has rights to. At the end of the day, Kanye West is a business person, and he has now made himself incredibly toxic to other businesses. There's not really, you can't really say much about that. At the end of the day, it's just like, you kind of fucked up your own bag on that one. And, what he'll do next, he's definitely going to be dropping an album soon-ish. I wouldn't be shocked, honest to God, and I mean this, I would not be shocked whatsoever if he ends up on Daily Wire somewhere. I would not be shocked at all by that. But yeah, expect him to kind of show up on more conservative media and kind of be a new media figure for the right, assuming he doesn't disappear from the public light for a couple of months, which I also think is a bit likely. But I see somebody putting Ye 2024. I can almost guarantee you that's probably not going to happen. Mainly because I can't see him. You know, to run a campaign, you need funding, and Kanye is somebody who's been pretty insecure in terms of funds for quite a while. So we'll kind of see how all this shakes out. But he's put himself in a position where he kind of has to play to the right wing now. So we'll kind of see where he goes with that. Can't wait to check out the new album. Can't wait for him to sell plain t-shirts to rural white folks. It'll be super fun. Anyway, so I know I said before the break that we were going to look at the St. Louis school shooting that happened yesterday, I suppose. But I am, and you all, anybody who watches this stream should know that things get bumped sometimes, and this is gonna be one of those situations. So let me do this. We will go over that story. I promise. I know. I promise. We will. But we're gonna skip that to go with what we had planned. You know, we'll talk about gun stuff if we have time towards the end. But for now, let's keep it moving. So Kanye West has recently lost his deal with Adidas, and there is one person, in fact, other than Kanye West, who you can attribute this loss of income to. And that person is none other than the internet's famous Candace Owens. So let's take a look. This has nothing to do with black people for once. From Candace Owens, which is a nice Which is a nice change. Also, Candace Owens continuing to have the fashion sense of what she truly is and should be identified as, which is a clown. Anyway, let's see. It's not a, quote, trans issue. It's child mutilation. Let's take a look.
You know, we have been covering this individual, Dylan Mulvaney. He is a guy that got famous on TikTok for basically what we thought was making fun of women, dressing up in a skirt and saying, "My first day as a woman," and jumping around outside, pretending to be scared of bugs. And it should have been a Halloween costume, basically leaning into a stereotype of what it means to be a woman. But all of a sudden, this person is being promoted everywhere. And he.
I'm sorry. I really love that Candace has already undermined her own argument in that, like, her saying that a part of being a woman is being scared of bugs and being flighty and other things are being parts of women, even though if you ask them, being a woman is about having a vagina. You see what we mean when we say it's a social construct? That, like, it has nothing to do with biology. Right there. I really shouldn't even have to continue with this video, but we will. But I want everyone to remember that. Remember that slip of hers, because it's rather obvious to me, and it should be obvious to you. When these people say a woman has a vagina and da 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 da, and a woman is biological, no, no, because there's such thing as real women and women, and stereotypes of women. There's a reason why there's that, like, social aspect to how we see women, as opposed to what females are, which are people with vaginas and ovaries and all the rest of that makeup.
He's receiving an award at the Forbes Women's Power Summit, and you're going, what's going on? And I told you what is potentially going on, and what people believe is going on is that TikTok is intentionally and artificially lifting up the accounts that are the most perverse.
As usual, the conspiracies. I know. Nothing can be popular.
The West has become a culture
that you don't like. I know, Candace. It's always a conspiracy of TikTok and other social medias that are, like, actively trying to undermine the Western hegemony, and you've got brain rot, my friend. I'm sorry.
Bugs, and so therefore I'm a woman and talking like this. Well, if you don't believe in conspiracies, you might believe in them when I tell you that this individual started a TikTok account.
My favorite thing is she's like, if you don't believe in conspiracies, but I just said a massive conspiracy. Okay, Candace.
was just given permission to interview President Joe Biden. Now, what's strange about that? President Joe Biden doesn't give interviews. President Joe Biden has barely given any interviews. He didn't even campaign, really. Remember COVID, so you can't ever see me out.
Whoa, a incredibly popular TikToker is going, and social media influencer is going to be interviewing a president? Whoa, I've never heard of that before. It's not like presidents and other political figures try to tie themselves to popular social figures to gain popularity with certain demographics that they're not usually popular with. Oh my god, conspiracy.
In front of a crowd ever because I'm just afraid, but I am, trust me, the most popular American president of all time. I did truly get 88 million votes. That really happened. But you've never seen a single crowd of people around me that weren't booing. Just somewhere in America, there are 88 million people who do love him. So,
fun fact, I've never been around Joe Biden. I love Joe Biden.
Dylan essentially vlogged his experience, his entire day leading up to the moment where he sat down with President Biden. So here is Dylan Mulvaney dressing up like a woman and taking you through every aspect of his day.
It's day 222 of being a girl. I'm in Washington, D.C., and I'm going to the White House to speak to the President of the United States. Huh. You know that phrase, I fear I may have girl bossed too close to the sun? Well, that's how I feel today, because I get to sit down with Joe Biden and Now This News, and I get to ask him a few questions surrounding trans issues.
You're doing it with Now This News, too. Okay, I'm not gonna... Just gonna keep moving.
And talk to him about my transness, and I really just want to represent my community the best that I can. And you know what? As silly as I am on here, I'm ready to step up and show that trans people, we're not going anywhere. And that trans kids, they deserve a fighting chance to be their true selves. Okay? Oh my god, I'm running late. Let's go. And y'all are obviously wondering what I'm gonna wear to meet the president. Here you go. It's the trans flag colors.
Oh, wow, that is fun. That is fun. I do like that. I'm not sure about the cape.
Cute, right?
I mean, is it a jacket? Is that a cape? I don't know. I'm not into the short cape thing. I think I said this the other day. I'm really not into like Batgirl's like weird short cape. Give her a normal size damn cape. It's not this weird ass cape. But that is a nice outfit. I enjoy this outfit. It's a bit 50s for me. It's a bit nuclear family. I'm not like that. I'm not a big 50s aesthetic person. It's why I don't really like Fallout that much. That's a nice outfit. That's a nice outfit.
Okay, Dylan, you're gonna be great. I love you. Let's go.
It's really funny too, because like there will be people who will be like, why is that man wearing women's clothing? And then it's like, and then you have to ask them like, because they can, because they won't fucking melt into ectoplasm if they put on women's clothes, because women's clothes have nothing to do with being like a female. It has everything to do with size and shape. Like, nice outfit though. We stand nice outfits here.
Do you think I just knock on the front door? Let's go.
Looking for the president's dog.
Our queen, love you. I love you. We're about to go. Is there anything in my teeth?
Oh yeah, there's so much girl bossing going on. Oh my god. Okay. Just so much liberal girl bossing. It's too much.
Leaving on cloud 9.
The President of the United States gave me a cookie. He gave me a cookie in the Oval Office.
Now, how good do you think the presidential cookies are? I feel like they're shit. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like they're not very good. I know the president probably has access to like the greatest chefs, but like I have this innate feeling that looking at that package, I'm like, y'all just bought like a case of cookies and put them in bags with a fun little gold stamp on them. Let's be real.
Here's the question. Do I eat it or do I save it? It has a seal. Please, honestly, tell me. Everyone, I'm about to pet the dog. I'm about to pet his dog. I'm still in shock, and don't be mad, but I don't get to post any of the footage until after the interview airs on Sunday night, but it's going to be worth it because I can't wait for you to hear everything that we talked about. I left with a lot of hope and optimism, not only for just trans people, but many different topics, and the fact that our president has watched Days of Girlhood, it's kind of epic, and I'm not going to lie, I have been...
I'm assuming that's this person's Twitter account and series. I don't really know, but good for Biden, who probably had somebody else watch him and then they gave him a quick summary before everyone entered the room. Let's be honest. But hey, at the end of the day, this is the job of branding yourself as a president.
I've been having a rough go of it lately. A lot of darkness, and today was what I needed to keep going. Also, if you live in the U.S. and can legally vote, this is going to be one of the most important elections of our lifetimes. So please get out and vote next month. There is so much darkness in this world. I mean, sometimes the bad actually outweighs the good, but we have to get in the mud right now, and we're going to clean up.
Imagine like being like incredibly bothered by this like a person who is like, I got to meet the president it was really exciting. And like they said the same usual like campaign shit to me, but they said it personally, so I felt like really nice about it. And you know, like imagine being upset about this. Like we're gonna go back to Candace, and she's gonna be very, very upset about this. And it's like, why do you care? Like, somebody got to meet the president. They got to speak on issues that the president doesn't like have lived experience around. Like, you know, like these people are like physically unable to let people like live their lives, but yeah, and not bother people either.
And I have your back, and I really hope you have mine, and I love you. God bless America. Oh, say, can you? Okay.
Too far.
Now,
Biden,
who doesn't even know that he is president, still believes that he is vice president, did sit down.
Oh my God, you had a reality show president who's a fat ass who eats McDonald's every day. Please move on from this. We get it. The guy has cognitive decline. For God's sakes, let's move on. Like the Biden doesn't know where he is meme was like funny for a bit, but we're moved on from that, Candace. It's Dark Brandon's time now. So I don't know, you know, like I don't think you realize the power of Dark Brandon, Candace. He's coming for you. He doesn't even know who you are, but he's gonna take everything from you.
Speak on trans rights with Dylan Mulvaney. Dylan Mulvaney asked the president some very simple questions. Do you think that states should be stopping people from mutilating their children? And here's what President Biden had to say about that to Dylan.
Do you think states should have
Was that a quote?
a right to ban gender-affirming healthcare?
I don't think.
Man, it's almost like Candace Owens doesn't know how to use quotation marks.
Any state or anybody should have the right to do that, as a moral question and as a legal question. I just think it's wrong.
So as a moral question and as a legal question, President Joe Biden thinks that people should be allowed to mutilate their children. That's what he believes, right? And I guess
I really love the like mutilation thing, because it's like they clearly picked like a word that's like, you know, somebody clearly watched like a horror movie at some point and was like, ooh, what's like a word that we can describe like trans care to people that like people will associate with something bad. And they're like, I saw Friday the 13th. I've seen horror movies. We just use like the language to describe what happens in those movies. That's how we get them. It's like, it's not mutilation. I can't even show you real mutilation. Please spare me.
calling it gender reassignment surgery because it sounds fluffy. And sometimes a porcelain urinal can really literally be art, except it's not. It's a porcelain urinal. And what you are doing is you are mutilating your children's bodies, and those children suffer for the
Armed
rest
with
of
my
their lives.
with my opinions,
They wake up one day and they realize
you'll be the
that this idea was
first
planted in
to
their
be
head by
taken down by
society,
Dark
culture,
Brandon.
poisonous culture that told them that this was so, that up was down, that they could wake up one day and just
I'm not, by the way.
be it. You want to be a butterfly? You're a butterfly. Let me put you under the knife and put wings on you because you're a butterfly. You want to be a mermaid? You're a mermaid. Let me sew your legs together and tell you that it's just one long fin.
Oh my God, did somebody... Okay, does anybody... Wait a minute. Am I the only one who feels like... Has anybody seen this movie? I want to know if anybody has seen this movie. If you know what this is from. Give me the zoom. Where's the... I'm such a boom. I like don't know how to zoom it. There it is. I want someone to tell me that they've seen this movie so that they understand what I'm going to say next. Okay, so clearly nobody. So the movie Tusk, if you're not familiar with it. God, this movie was so fucking wacky. Give me like the quick summary. Synopsis? Is that technically synopsis? I never know if synopsis is like I don't want like the entire movie. Here we go. No. There we go. Just give me a quick summary real quick. A brash and arrogant podcaster gets more than he bargained for when he travels to Canada to interview a mysterious recluse who is when a podcaster I know what Tusk is. Okay, so you know what Tusk is. Sweet. Somebody knows what Tusk is. Does anybody else get the feeling that like Tusk is what they're thinking of in their head whenever they like describe like trans people? Like that's definitely the way that they talk about like trans folks. I feel like somebody must have watched the movie Tusk and was very disturbed by it. Like so the movie is about Justin Long, for anybody who hasn't seen it, who's like a podcaster. He goes to like interview this kind of weird dude, and the dude ends up locking him up and then doing a bunch of like weird what's the guy who does The Fly? Cronenberg? Is that Cronenberg? I think it's Cronenberg. Weird like Cronenberg surgeries to turn him into a giant walrus. And like this is what you're left with over here. Is this like just this oblong shape of like of a walrus. And this when conservatives talk about trans people, I swear to God, I think this is what they're thinking. I think this is, at the end of the day, what's going through their mind and what they're envisioning when they say, like when they say mutilate, this is what they mean, right? That's what they mean, is that walrus right there. Understand, like, the person that they're complaining about looks like this. Like, in their mind, they see this. In reality, it's this. It's fucking psychosis. It's fucking psychosis. Oh, let's see. Man, armed with my opinions, you have a lot of... You certainly brought them. Turn it inside out and then have to stick something into the cache to keep it open. Heard that the smell is quite disgusting, but after the surgery, they have to keep something. Sure, it'll close up. I know what does because I'm meal. For all that. Well, you know, there are people who might not be here. I don't have my viewer count, so up because I don't pay attention to that. But I don't know. Maybe there are people who are going to be watching later. Maybe there are people who will be watching this later and years later, armed with my opinions. You know, it might just be you now, but eventually all the other followers of Dark Brandon will be following me on this campaign to specifically turn everybody you know personally trans, and we will succeed. We will not be defeated. But yeah, surgeries are gross. They're surgeries. What's new? Uninteresting. Cringe. Not really making an argument there.
Of big pharma drugs because they're from the very top of care.
I don't think any state or anybody should have the right to do that. As a moral question and as a legal question. I just think it's wrong.
So as a moral question and as a legal question, President Joe Biden thinks that people should be allowed to mutilate their children. That's what he believes, right? And I guess we're calling it gender reassignment surgery because it sounds fluffy. And sometimes a porcelain urinal can really literally be art, except it's not. It's a porcelain urinal.
Whoa. I think toilets can't be art, man. That's cringy.
What you are doing is you are mutilating your children's bodies. And those children...
I'm pretty sure Donald Trump's like golden toilet would like to have a word with you, Candace.
For the rest of their lives. The rest of their lives. They wake up one day and they realize that this idea was planted in their head by a society, a culture, a poisonous culture. That this was so up was down. You wake up one day and just think it and therefore be it. Do you want to be a butterfly? You're a butterfly.
It's always this weird conspiracy that they do. That really gets me, where it's like they build up this whole story of like someone grows up in this like society and like they go on this big like narrative, what's it called? This big like narrative, like they're writing like a book. Like, guys, just stick to fiction. Just stick to why. So I'm curious, why uncharacteristically? Armed with my opinions, why is she uncharacteristically smart? I mean, she is fucking stupid. Actually, I'll give her this. Candace Owens is smart. She knows where she can make her money. One of the good ones. Good one of what's. She knows where she can get her money. And it's with puppeting white supremacist talking points. Like it's an anti-trans talking points. That's at the end of the day what her job is, to be the black person that can say that says all the things that white racists say.
Let me put you under the knife and put wings on you because you're a butterfly. You want to be a mermaid? You're a mermaid. Let me sew your legs together and tell you that it's just one long fin. Of course, it is a delusion, but it is now a delusion that is trickling down from the very top of our society. The President of the United States is saying it is wrong for states
First of
to
all,
stand
what is
up
Candace
and
Owens
ban
living
these
in
procedures.
Britain
Right? If he was
talking about
trying to play
American
them in the middle, maybe
politics?
he'd say, wait
Stay
until
out
you're
of
18.
this,
I
you
think it's great. I
foreigner.
think it's all great, and I believe in being trans, but maybe wait until you're 18. He's saying, no, 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 no. Do it when you're 6. States should allow parents to make these decisions for their children when they're 6 years old, knowing that they'll never be sexually reproductive ever again. These individuals are speaking out all the time. People that are
Untrue.
saying they have deep regret because doctors allow them to go on with this lie. I have interviewed these people. I have spoken with them. These people commit.
She's spoken with like the 10 people. Understand the actual detransitioner percentage is incredibly low. It's something like 3% of all trans people. And most of that number comes from not out of regret for the surgery or for their trans identity. It comes from lack of support and acceptance from their communities. It has nothing to do with regret from the actual what's the word? From their actual surgery.
To a lifetime of big pharma drugs because they're in pain. It causes early osteoporosis, among other things, which Matt Walsh showed in his documentary, What is a Woman? It's just a terrible, terrible thing that we have going on in our society, and you have a bunch of people that are cowards.
I think a lot of black people agree with what she says. I'm sure a lot of people agree with what she says. Do I think those people are wrong? Yeah. So, black people can be wrong. I don't need to live in the hood, which also I grew up with a lot of black people, but I don't need either of those two life experiences to say that black people not being cool with the LGBT community, not good, unbased, bad. I don't care if they're black; they're still wrong. Sorry. I mean, you know, I'm pretty sure most of them don't agree with her anti-black stances, but you know, they can agree with her LGBT stances. That's fine. They're both wrong in that case. Candace Owens is just doing whatever's making her money.
And of course, Biden supports this because he is the state. And the point of the state is to grow the state. And what better way to grow the state than to produce a bunch of Franken children, right? You're experimenting with them. You are causing them to become dependents on the state. Medicaid is what they need, right? I need to have the government be able to afford all of this medicine that I now need because I allowed some.
Ooh, Medicaid. Ooh. See, also, this is where the conservative economics thing comes in, which at the end of the day is also what she represents because, you know, all of these problems, she's going to kind of drive people towards anti-Medicaid, toward anti-socialized medicine, which, by the way, will end up impacting people's healthcare. And then guess what? We don't have a system where people can actually get their healthcare. It's only... you know, how about this? Armed with my opinion, if you're going to talk this much, we're going to do this. There's an email address right up here. You can go, and I invite you to come on this show. I'll send you a Discord link, and we can have a little chit chat. How about that? Because all the little things you got around here, it's really nice. I really appreciate you talking in chat. I'd also suggest you should follow if you want to keep heckling me. Totally open for you to do that. But you know, since you seem to have a lot of opinions and you're coming armed with them, I suggest you come armed with them on the show. Just let me know whenever you're free. But you let me know.
Somebody to experiment on my body. Not that you allowed someone because your parents allowed this to happen, which is an even deeper sin and a deeper crime. And I believe that we are going to, in the future, see a lot of lawsuits. Children against their own parents, children against doctors. They're already happening quietly, but we're going to be hearing about them.
AKA, they're not happening at all right now.
One alternative aspect.
Candace Owens, they're happening quietly, which basically means that they're not happening. And I'm sure, if you're asking me, I am sure we will get, like, a few lawsuits. I'm sure that's a thing that will happen at some point. There will be a person who puts out a lawsuit against their parents for letting them transition or whatever. I'm sure that'll be a thing that happens. But that has no bearing and doesn't really represent the broader community of trans folks. So it's, you know, you can always find outliers. You can always find, you know, these sorts of people because there's like 7 billion people on the planet. You're always going to find, like, you know, you'll definitely be able to find a trans person that was like, that'll sue their parents after their transition and everything else. You'll find black people who spout white supremacist talking points. You can find anybody from any group. What's the word? Speaking, forwarding the talking points and the rhetoric that damages their group. You can always find that there's always people who end up doing that. It's not, at the end of the day, what we're talking about is a large group of people and trends, and a large swath of society that we need to make room for in our society. And they don't these people like Candace Owens, they don't want that, which is all well and good. You don't have to want everybody here, but unfortunately you kind of got to live with everybody being here. So yeah, well, hang on, you just let me know. I'm not talking about right now. We don't have to do it even this week, but armed with my opinions. I love talking with people. It's fun interacting with you in chat and everything, but I gotta wait for you to respond, and it's a whole I gotta wait for what you say, and then you gotta wait for me to respond, and I might say like 10 things before you're even done typing your one response. So all I'm saying is you got the gumption. Come on. Love talking with people. Let me be clear. I really do. I like talking with people. I will talk people's ears off about politics at like bars and parties, and people hate me for it because they're always like, oh, what the hell? Hey, thank you, Armed with My Opinions. I appreciate you being here, man. Anyway, so you're going to like this one because we're going to continue talking about black people with funny opinions. So, Gothix, a Twitch streamer, YouTuber, person with aesthetics. I see we have the mask from V for Vendetta? Yeah, V for Vendetta. It's been a while since I've watched that movie. No, I haven't read the comics. I know I'm terrible. I really want to. I just haven't gotten around to it. I know. But we have a video by her called The Illusion of Racism. Let's take a look. We're gonna put this to 1.25. I already did. Man, I'm so smart.
I'm going to say something here. It might confuse people. I don't believe
there we go.
that racism exists. I don't believe it.
It's really not. Okay.
What exists is hate. Hate exists.
Uh-huh.
Racism is a label used
Uh-huh.
to embellish hate.
Uh-huh.
People have different definitions.
So, wow, this video's cut up a lot. Probably because Gothix has like brain worms. But so what racism is discriminatory and is discriminatory language and hate toward a specific group for the inherent what's the word, for the inherent traits of simply being part of that group. So hating black people because they're black, and then justifying that with all the rest of your cultural and societal nonsense. Racism is kind of one of those things where it's just kind of always been there. People always end up lashing out at groups that they're not in. It's tribalism. So acknowledging that there's hate and then trying to make it that racism is just like a fun little adjective power word you use to. Let's just keep going. Let's hear the argument
of racism. Sometimes they'll say racism is someone saying the N-word. They're doing blackface, and those aren't actually problems. None of those are problems, because at the core of it, what is it? Someone is saying something to hurt your feelings. You're gonna get that anywhere, from anyone, of any skin color. From there, people will say, well, it's worse to not like someone because of their skin color. Is it? Because at the end of it, what's the conclusion?
Is it? Wait. Am I about to hear a pro-racism argument? Okay.
The conclusion is your feelings are hurt. Again, not a problem, because you're going to find that anywhere. So some people will also say that racism is the act.
Racism's okay because it's everywhere? Okay.
Of targeting someone. So this is where the hate crime.
Well, not someone, it's groups. Individual racism is like bad, but you can get over individual racism. Systemic racism is a huge fucking problem. Like that in any society is a huge problem.
Comes in. There's no such thing as a hate crime. It's a crime. This gets even more obvious when you look at the media. Unarmed black man killed by white police officer is the same thing as man killed by police officer.
So Gothics does know that, like, there are headlines for when, like, white people commit crimes that are favorable towards them, right? Or is this only like I only recognize racism when it's against white people, or when it's used to point out the delineation between white and black people?
The same thing, but one sounds like it's racist. It's causing you to imply that. So now here's the other part that some people really are going to have trouble digesting. People will say racism is defined as discrimination. I didn't get this job because I'm black. If I have a business, I should be allowed to not hire someone.
What job? You're a live streamer.
Someone for any reason. Doesn't matter what the reason is. It's my business. If I don't want to hire you, if I don't want to sell to you, it's my business not to do that because it's
Ooh, this is like a pro-racism argument. Like, that's what this is. Is Gothics aware of, like, the South? I don't know where Gothics is from. I am originally from Virginia, which technically is the South. And, you know, Southern history will show you that, like, if you make it people's freedom to do their business, that they don't hire black people because they don't like hiring black people, and that's their business, you'll find then that an entire community in our country ends up living in squalor and poverty, and that it's then by design. Sure, it's a lot of people's personal decisions, but when it's influenced and what's the word? Allowed, facilitated by the state, you have a society of, and you've probably heard this before, two classes. And those classes aren't economic, they're social. There are people who are full citizens who can get jobs, and there are people who are not full citizens that are not allowed to get jobs. Separate but equal. We've all seen this before. I don't know why Gothics is pretending like this isn't something we've seen in history already. You know, the 1960s weren't that long ago. This didn't get fixed till then. So, yeah. It's really hard to figure out, but whoa, that's too much Gothics. Chill the fuck out.
My business. How is that fair, you ask? How is that fair? This is where capitalism comes in. If someone's not going to sell you something because of
I love capital arguments.
That means you can take your money and you can go elsewhere to a company that will do business with you. If I didn't want to go through that process, you know what I would do?
Wait, but how do I make money to take that to another business if I can't get a job because everyone in my town's racist? How do I influence the capital makeup of my town when I'm not afforded the ability to have a job that then gives me ability to have influence over that town's capital makeup? See how this works? Did you not think this through like once? There's like so many cuts in this. I feel like she had to do like a bazillion takes.
Start my own business. The majority of people on this planet want to make money. And in order to make money, you have to think from a business perspective.
Sure.
And a business perspective does not entail saying, I don't want to sell to black people.
Wait, are we arguing that racists would rather make money than be racist? She does realize that, like, people in the South would say that black people's money is no good here. That's like a thing. Like, okay.
So now you're faced with that reality.
Oh my God, there's so many cuts.
I have to
start
my own business because this guy won't hire black people? Why? If you need to survive, you're gonna figure it out. I think if we're talking about oppression, true.
You'll just figure it out. Your entire town's racist, and you can't. The black people in your community can't get jobs because everybody around is around who owns businesses is racist. You'll just figure it out. It's a skill issue on your part, black people in the South in the Reconstruction era, obviously.
Oppression against black people or anyone, the way to combat that is to learn how to be self-sufficient so you don't have to rely on other people. If we're thinking about like
yeah, black people just learn how to farm on the like less than a quarter on like the on the tiny little house that you live in. Just learn how to farm. Totally. Like,
the civil rights movement, the idea is back then it was way, way worse in terms of racism. But that's not the reality. A lot of the stuff we were fed about the civil rights movement was bull.
Black folk had 100 times more before social integration hit. I'm old enough to tell you all that. You're all not old enough to know that yet. When I was a kid, see, we had something. We weren't looking for this social integration. You know why? Because we had our own businesses there.
So, do you think has anybody heard of Black Wall Street? Like, that's like a thing that actually happened. It wasn't just in the Watchmen show. If you've seen that show, you know what I'm talking about. But, yeah, like, black people had a nice, like, Black Wall Street, or whatever it was called. I forget. I think might have been called Black Wall Street. But, yeah, and it got, like, looted and burned to the ground in Oklahoma.
We had our own cab companies, we had our own restaurants, we had our own hotels.
UncleTom.com, amazing. I'm really glad Gothics is like leaning into that stuff.
In the entire United States. All of our mechanics was black. All of our drivers were black. Electricians was black. Everything was black. We don't kill our buses. Sure. Social integration. When all of a sudden, you also are talking about Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King going down to Alabama, want to integrate the bus lines. Integrate whose bus lines?
I have always ridden in the back of the bus because I didn't have guts to get in the front of the bus. But now the time has come, and riding in the front of the bus.
Like Winston-Salem says, we want to ride on front of some white buses. So we said, we don't have any white buses. They said, well, we'll get some so we can ride on in front of them.
I feel like a complete asshole because I never thought about that. Like that whole time they did the boycott, they should have been trying to establish their own bus company as opposed to wanting to ride. I never thought about that. Y'all boycotted for a year just to want to ride in the front?
See, you're a smart man.
I never thought about that.
but you got it now, right?
In 1905, black people were literally buying entire buildings. This idea that blacks were always at the mercy of whites is just asinine. At least when it came to Booker T. Washington and the effect that he had on those who put his ideas into practice.
Eventually, what would have happened if...
What is this angle? Am I crazy? Okay, anyway. Yeah, this is history that, like... Is there a history of black people, like, you know, getting their bootstraps on and, like, building their own stuff? Absolutely. At the end of the day, black people created jazz. Black people created rock and roll. Black people have always survived in this country the systemic weight that we've put around their ankles. But none of that means that suddenly racism doesn't exist. Just because you make it through hard times does not mean that they weren't hard times. It's not really how that works. You know, at the end of the day, and also we want to mention, there are people who are black who are pro-segregation. That old guy, I would not be shocked, is probably a segregationist, but on the black side, which segregation is not good. I think people should freely be able to go in whatever neighborhoods, participate in any business, any commerce, participate in any part of this country's function, regardless of skin tone. That's why I don't support Israel. Because at the end of the day, nobody gets to have their own little ethno-state. Not having it.
That whole movement didn't start. What I think would have happened was the racist business owners would have realized how much money the black community was generating, and
this is also untrue. This is all theoretical. The thing she's talking about,
it's like
the thing she's talking about is purely theoretical and untrue. Racists would absolutely prefer to make less money if it's not the black man's money. If it was the black man's money, I should say. So let's be very clear about that.
Basketball team, if you know you got a black guy that is always dunking, but you don't want to hire a black guy, well, you're going to keep losing all of your games until you realize that he's going to help you make some money. So then you say, okay, you can come on the team. Unity, I think, happens natural if you allow it to. I think the problem starts when you start forcing people to like each other. You can't legislate the end of...
Certainly nobody's saying you have to like each other. You just have to live together. Sorry. Deal with it. That's how society works. Like we're not having this isn't again what Gothics is arguing for is an ethno-state. Like that's all she's arguing for. Black people should be amongst themselves. White people should be amongst themselves. And quite frankly, who do you think that's going to favor at the end of the day? Who do you think holds the power in this country? Black folk or white folk? So when I say that Gothics either hasn't thought about this or is A, gaslighting her audience into thinking that she hasn't thought about this, there is a demographic who would greatly do perfectly fine, would succeed under that system. And I don't think it's going to be black folks. I'm sorry, I just don't.
Of someone not liking you. And this is something that a lot of these angry activists don't seem to grasp.
Yes,
is if
angry
you're
activists.
truly committed to changing someone's perspective on something, you don't do it by shouting at them, calling them a racist or a white supremacist. That's how you instill fear into them. And fear. Is it clouds your logic. It makes you unable to think rationally about stuff. And I think the end result are, you know, white liberals that are causing more problems for black people than black people are causing problems for themselves. You don't scare.
Wow. White liberals causing more problems for black people than black people. I can actually get on board with that one. That is probably accurate. The white liberal generally isn't strong enough on black issues. That's true.
Scare people into liking you or accepting you. You showed the humanity in yourself to other people and hope that eventually they'll see it. There's been a few people over these last couple of years who have slid in my DMs who used to hate me. I didn't like you before. I thought you were this, that, and the other. And I've been watching your videos, and now I realize that you're not what everyone says you are. But imagine if I got up on YouTube every day and cussed people out and held those grudges and said, those people are bigots, they're evil. I would have just been proving these people right. You can try to change people's minds, but I think the first step is to figure out, what are you doing? You know, are you condemning them for feeling the way that they do? Maybe there's something you can do on your end. Everyone deals with some form of struggle.
Okay, this is just gonna be my video editing. What's it called? He, him. This is just gonna be my video editing critique of this. Holy shit! There's like a cut every 3 seconds. Dear God, this is insufferable. Gothics, learn how to finish a sentence and not cut every other second, please.
The issue isn't the struggle. The issue is, what are you going to learn at the other end of it? How are you going to overcome it? Because you don't have a choice to not overcome it. Some people...
Jeez, it's like racism is just part of the world. We just can't fight it. You just have to overcome it. It's if you didn't overcome every system moving against you, it sounds like a skill issue. That's her argument. That's her argument. That if you are part of a discriminated class and you don't what's the word? Like immensely succeed. Thank you, AS Music. Welcome to the stream. If you don't make it through that, if your community doesn't make it through that, guess what? It's a skill issue. Which is convenient. I mean, it's convenient for somebody who is, you know, Gothics who probably makes a lot of money on streaming, a lot of money doing her YouTube stuff and saying all this nonsense. Exactly. Like, you know, to her, it's like, oh, it's a skill issue. You just didn't try hard enough, which is always, you know, people who make it, people who are like, you know, who've done well all of a sudden, or, they did whatever it is they needed to do. Suddenly they think, oh, well, obviously I had the answer. I tried harder than everybody else. Gothics, you sat on a stream and got lucky that you got enough traction to have a successful stream. Like at the end of the day, like what makes people successful is not just one factor, and certainly doesn't come down to merit. But again, Gothics is a meritocracy stand. So, I mean, you know, for all what that's worth.
Think they have a choice. They can just pick up a megaphone and scream into it, hoping that the government is going to save them from all of their problems.
So not real, to a degree. So Gothics mostly is arguing that racism doesn't exist, and even if it does, it's good. That's kind of her general argument, it seems like.
Without realizing, maybe I'm supposed to go through this problem right now. Maybe there's something that I'm deficient in, but you'll never know if you keep running away from those problems. If I had to guess, one of the things that I think the 1950s, 1960s taught black people back then, despite this idea that it was so overtly racist and black people were in shackles, is that it taught people to be more...
Well, actually, fun fact, back in the 1950s and 60s, black people weren't in shackles. They were discriminated against through Jim Crow laws. I swear, I don't know if like Gothix was just like has like never read a book. I don't know. Maybe she is aware of the South and she grew up in the South. Who knows? But yeah, there was this thing called Jim Crow laws. I'm sure you find people who have heard of them. But like it's like you've never heard of Jim Crow laws. You never heard separate but equal. You've never seen what kind of societies, like what kind of communities black people lived in, especially in the South, like during those times. And also, let's remind you, like a lot of these businesses that did well during Reconstruction were more in the North than they were in the South. So like this whole like integration, like that's in the South, man. Like in the North, there weren't nearly as many laws. There was mild discrimination, but mostly it was liberals discriminating with like soft racism, which is really more of like, I say soft, it's not really soft racism. It's really more like, oh, we just want to keep, we're just not sure about the black people from the South who come here and want to move to our neighborhoods. And they're like, we're just not sure. Whereas like in the South, you literally just have laws that are like, no blacks allowed, go to your own, what's it called? Go to your own neighborhoods, whatnot. If you want to really interesting like media thing to watch, there's a show, it came out a couple years ago, it's called Lovecraft Country. I never finished it, sadly. I'm terrible at watching TV shows, but the first episode deals with the main characters moving around sundown towns. If you don't know what sundown towns are, obviously Gothix does not. They are towns in the South where it was not okay, it was not safe for black people once the sun went down, because those neighborhoods would be racist and would not offer them shelter, would not offer them food at diners, would not allow them to patronize anything. There might have been laws that might have been passed that they're not allowed to do that, but the local police would just look the other way or not show up after a certain time of night. So anyway, we don't have too much longer. Let's
self-sufficient.
Try to get through
and what
this.
I find is complaining does nothing. It does nothing. It's better to figure out, how do we overcome it? What can I do? What can I learn? I'd prefer to do
What
that
can I do to
than
beat the racism
complain,
without
because
beating the
it also puts the
racism?
focus on me and says, I'm the only one in the world who's going through something like this, without considering other people have also gone through the same thing. I think one of the most insulting things I saw with
precisely
BLM in particular, these
what
last
she is
couple of
saying.
years, where it seems like
That
the
is
majority of
200%
Black
what
Americans
she's-
are
it's a
complaining
skill
about
issue to
racism
her.
all the time, is how is it that someone's grandparents did pretty well for themselves, yet now kids today are complaining about racism? Well, if we're looking at the end result, grandma and grandpa.
Wait, who are we talking? First of all, the economics of the 60s, 70s, and 80s very different from the economics of today.
They're fine, lived happy lives, have their own houses, their own businesses. Even despite living in an overtly racist time, they're fine.
How many of those?
So you'll be fine too. Thanks for watching.
How many of those? Like, I live in Colorado, a very blue state if you're not aware. And the share of black-owned businesses, not super high. Not incredibly high, although being a rather left-leaning state. Like, I'm not saying you'd be super shocked, but yeah, it's not. The share of black people owned businesses is like, there's a reason why that gets noted, that like a business is like black owned, because that's kind of unique in in most parts of the U.S. And I don't think that's controversial at all. Like, yes, OAS music. Her overarching argument is that black people, it's a skill issue. Just overcome it. Why don't, like, just beat it, and she's like trying to argue that like racism doesn't exist, even though she understands that racism does exist. Because the name of her video, where is it? What happens? This is what I get for closing the tab before I'm done. But her video is like called, where is it? Where is it? No, it's on here. Here it is. Okay. Let's take a look.
I'm going to say.
So understand, like, you kind of heard the end part of her argument. Like, you heard the end part of like, racism is something you just kind of got to get over. Da 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 da. Like, I'm hoping you can see this. Let me know if I need to zoom in. Whoa, too much Gothics there. But like, yeah, like the name of the video is The Illusion of Racism. Like it's like she simultaneously tries to make the argument. Like she simultaneously tries to make the argument that racism doesn't exist. Like
something here. It might confuse people. I don't believe that racism exists. Figure out, what are you doing? You know, are you condemning them for feeling the way that they do? Maybe there's something you can think they have a choice. Maybe there's something that I'm 60s taught black people back then, despite this idea that it was so overtly racist and black people were in shackles, is that it taught people to be more self-sufficient. And what I find is complaining does nothing. It does nothing. It's better.
Yeah. So like she recognized that racism did exist and that people like got better, like people got better, like and people made it through those systems. So it's like, no, like racism absolutely exists. Dumb fuck. But yeah. Oh, okay. Fortunately, OAS, you kind of showed up towards the end of the stream. But that's okay. I still deeply appreciate you being here. I agree with your vibe check on pronouns. You know, you might see in the chat there was like some who was it? It was Armed with My Opinions. I think their opinions are pretty cringe. But you know, I say this to everybody. If you ever like to come on, have a chit chat, have a little talk with me live on stream, I have no problem with talking to people. I love talking with people. I love hearing other opinions. I have, yeah, we're gonna push it. Fuck it. We have a little bit more time, so I want to talk really quickly and about the guys, because I keep seeing this every once in a while, and like, oh, what was that? That was anyway. I keep seeing this around this graph a little bit. And I've heard people kind of get on their soapboxes about this. So I figured, who am I if not a shitposty little content creator to not steal some content? Young men aren't having sex. Nearly a third of men under 30 have not had sex, and a higher percent does not have as much sex as they'd like. Not exactly surprising, but this kind of statistic is a sign of much deeper problems. So, I don't know how many of you have seen this chart. I'm not sure. It doesn't matter if I'm not wrong. So, as we can see, 1989. Let's see what this is not a full graph. Luckily, I opened the full thing. Let's take a look. More than ever, Americans aren't having sex. So, this person like pulled the specific like men portion of this, so I understand why. I think it's a bit, I think overall everyone's kind of having a little bit less sex these days. But let's like kind of take a look here. The share of the US adults reporting no sex in the past in the past year reached an all-time high in 2018, underscoring a 3-decade trend line marked by an aging population and higher numbers of unattached people. Yeah, so we have weekly or more going down. Yep. No sex at all. Steadily going up about 4%. Monthly dipping a bit, then going down a bit. Okay, those aren't awful numbers. I think so. It's one of those things where I think it's like it's an issue only in the fact that you know, if there is, men make up, let's just use like fake numbers for a minute. Men make up 50% of the population, right? Again, fake numbers. Which means that if half of that population is not having sex, is not having those kinds of relationships, it's not ideal. And it's not ideal mainly because you end up seeing effects of that in not just happiness, but also you see people get in a society get more frustrated. You know, I've spoken before on the stream about not just toxic gun culture, but also toxic masculinity. And where a lot of that toxic masculinity comes from is an insecurity with the amount of sex that some men are having. So a lot of guys will run to individuals like Andrew Tate, like Jordan Peterson, like I guess Joe Rogan. I'm not sure how much Joe Rogan like really does for the young virgin fellas. He might do a lot, he might not. But overall, men in 2022, unlike women, I think, are in a uniquely lost position. Since the, about the 1960s, 1970s, the feminist movement has done a good job at securing and reinforcing not only women's rights, but women's broader place in society. Such as, if you're a woman, there was a time where all you did was housekeeping. Now, you can be a house, you can be a mother, just housekeeper, all the rest of that stuff. But now you can get a career. Your life doesn't revolve around the men that you're dating, sleeping with, married to, whatever. Now, as women, you can be your own person, which is a good thing. It's an unequivocal good thing. Unfortunately, the negative consequence, I should say, or at least like an aspect of that affects other people, is going to be men, because men historically have 1 minute, 1 second, let me think of the word. I always have these word blips. Have always tied their value to their relationship with women, in terms of if you're a man, you're supposed to provide a home for women. You're supposed to provide financial security to women. For the longest time, men's role were being caretakers to women and children. Men's roles were being the heads of households. And that's not a thing anymore, which is, again, a good thing. But because of that drop in what traditional males think their roles need to be, they find themselves lost in this world of not understanding what their social role is anymore. Because, when they, older men will tell you when they were growing up, they got the good jobs, they met like a nice gal at a party, and then, they eventually got married, had kids, do all that stuff. Men can't do that anymore. People generally can't do that anymore. That's not really a thing that, especially people in my generation, do very much. I personally am a millennial. I know a few Gen Zers, and a handful of Gen Xers that I'm not the biggest fans of. But my point is to say that, like, everybody's role has changed over the last 30 to 40 years, and that's left men in a weird spot of not really knowing what they're supposed to be doing in their role, not really knowing what to do with their lives to a degree. And that's a problem, but it's a problem that we can solve. And it's a problem that I think men, broadly, need to kind of reckon with. There are guys out there who are concerned with the lack of sex that they're having. They're concerned with the lack of, what's the word? With the lack of relationships they're having. Because, let's be honest, because of COVID, it's made dating harder. It's made dating harder. It's made relationships harder. With political the political polarization that we have here in the U.S., it makes meeting people a lot more precarious, I think. And overall, when you don't make a lot of money, when the politics of your era are rife with a lot of contention, you tend to not really know how to socialize. You don't know, like how to talk to women, why you're talking to women. Because for men, for the longest time, like I said, you talk to women because, eventually you want to sleep with them and then marry them and then have kids and have a house and da-da-da and all the rest of the things that come with the nuclear family and everything else. But now, women don't need that. Women don't need any part of that. They can go about their lives being perfectly happy without you. So how do you find meaning? And for men, and I'm going to speak specifically to the guys, if and when there are any watching this stream, fellas, you gotta learn to find some meaning for yourself. And I know that that's like me basically saying it's a skill issue. Hurry up and like just figure it out. But it's not that simple. So I'm gonna say, if I'm gonna give a few little nuggets of advice, and I also want to say, I wasn't that successful with the ladies. I wasn't. I had exactly one girlfriend in high school, one during college, and now one post college, living kind of in the real world. And that's really it. And when it comes down to it, what I've learned more than anything is you got to learn to approach women with a lot less baggage. And by baggage, I mean take your mind off of the destination. What you need to focus on is what is going to make you happy and fulfilled right now that isn't a relationship, because that will never make you happy and fulfilled, and it shouldn't, because you can't tie your happiness and your fulfillment to another person's existence. You need to find that for yourself. So that means going out with your friends. That means, finding a hobby. Go play mini golf. Go play tennis. Fucking learn how to code. Make a video game. Become a streamer. I don't know. Enter a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament in your local area. Something. I know I'm using very millennial examples. I'm sure nobody plays Yu-Gi-Oh anymore who's in Gen Z. But my point is, cultivate your interests. Cultivate your interests. And don't worry so much about all the rest of the, what society says you should be doing, because that's what you're getting obsessed with. You're getting obsessed with what society says you should be doing. At 25, you should be looking for a girlfriend to possibly marry at 30, to have kids at 32. Get rid of all that. Reject that. Because what that is putting constraints, and what that is putting a lot of pressure on you to just exist. So, these are not good numbers. It is not good that men are having trouble finding relationships and not having sex and everything else. And it's not men broadly. I don't think it's men's fault. Partially, I think feminism has done a bad job of communicating the men's half of it. People have asked me before why I'm a feminist, and it's because I'm pro-woman. I'm also pro-man. I'm anti-toxic masculinity. I like women being able to do what they want to do. I like men being able to what they want to do. I don't like the delineation between real men and fake men or trans men or any of that shit. Right? It's all games. It's all games for other people to distinguish themselves and put themselves a little bit higher on the next notch of their personal totem poles. What you need to worry about is you. And what you need to worry about is what makes you happy outside of romantic relationships. Those will come. But they're never going to come when it's the only thing that you're going out to look for in the world. Learn, not learn. I shouldn't say learn. But get in the habit of every time you're leaving your house, get in the habit of doing something that you want to do. Do something that'll make you smile that day. If it's going to work, I understand work kind of sucks most of the time. But, there's always things you can do to have fun at work. I work in kitchens. I'll give you a brief example. I work in kitchens. I'm a food service worker for the most part. I cook for a living. Do you want to know what makes me happy? I go into work. Work's just okay. But the thing that makes me happy and the thing that draws people to me as a person is my enjoyment of cooking. And what I'll do is because I like to cook and I like to give people good food. When people go on break, I'll offer to make them their lunch. We have a lot of ingredients. So what do? I kind of get an idea for what they like, and I make them, a sandwich, a burger, a pizza, a something. I work in more of a bar setting, by the way. But I make them something that I think they might enjoy that helps me manifest my creativity, gives them something worthwhile, something different, something that they can enjoy. But that creates like a relationship. And not all this I don't work with mostly women. I work with like a couple women and mostly dudes. But my point is you want to start doing things like that. Do something that lets you get your creativity out. Something that you can enjoy, that you can give to somebody else. That you can pass along that enjoyment to somebody else. That's what I think men need to focus on more. I know that these numbers are bad, and I know that there are going to be men out there who are going to think, oh my God, I'm not having sex. We're all not having sex. Oh my God, there's Western civilization is falling. There's so many. Take a deep breath. All of you, take a deep goddamn breath. Cultivate your interests, and every day find something that will put a smile on your face for somebody else. Doing nice things for others will not only make you more attractive, it will also get you to interact with people in a better way that will help you down the line when those romantic relationships come up. But and to anybody who doesn't, I understand that people go like, oh, why are we always focused on men? Look, there are always groups of people that we don't need to focus on, but at the end of the day, all this stuff is important. We want men to be happy as much as we want women to be happy. We want LGBT people to be happy the same way we want heterosexual people to be happy. Everybody has a right to happiness. It's just, it's all about reorganizing society and making an effort to speak to these people. There are incels all over Twitch, and hopefully one day I'll talk to a few of them and kind of be able to pick their brain for what it is that's deeply bothering them. Because I've heard excuses from when other streamers talk to incels, and I've heard a lot of this stuff. And to me, it comes from men who've had some bad experiences and extrapolate that to the rest of their lives. Trust me, I had some bad experiences in my life. It all evens out. But anyway, I'm rambling now. I hope I've made my point. It's been a day. It's been a day, friends. But this is the end of it. It's the last segment. Or at least that was the last segment. So, thank you for watching. If you're here now, if you're here in the future, if you go back into the past and watch it live because you have a time machine, I thank you anyway. As always, I have a lot of fun doing these. Please follow here on Twitch and subscribe on YouTube. This VOD will expire on Twitch, but I upload all of my VODs onto YouTube, along with cut up clips, just for kind of like shorter bursts of content for you guys over there as well. So you should subscribe there. Yeah. Right now we're at like 21 followers, which really happy about. This stream's only been going for maybe I don't know, like a week and a half or so, like something like that. I don't really know how long it's been, but I've enjoyed it so far, and I thoroughly like doing this. So yeah, happy Tuesday. You all have a lovely night, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye. Oh yeah, and tell your friends, anybody who also watches political streamers, tell them to also check out this stream. And tell some of the bigger streamers to watch my stream. Who knows? Tell everybody. Tell your friends. Tell everyone you know. Okay, bye for real this time.